Good evening, everyone, to the March 5th Planning and Public Works meeting. I am so glad everybody could make it, and I appreciate the quick movement to the big rooms where we can be a little more comfortable. And commissioners, when we begin our actual PowerPoint presentations, probably be best if we just move down to our commission chairs so we don't hurt ourselves trying to look behind us. Becky, if you would call the roll, and we'll proceed with the agenda.
Commissioner Dodd.
Here.
Commissioner Piercy.
Here.
Commissioner Sereno.
Here.
Commissioner Rather.
Here.
Commissioner Cush.
Here. Would like to get the approval of the minutes, so I will call on our vice chairman for that motion.
Chairman Cush, I have reviewed the minutes and seem to find them all in order and move for their approval.
All right, need a second?
Second.
We have a solid second. All those in favor of the minute approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Brooks, are you ready to present your Highway Department report?
Good evening, everyone. What I have for you tonight is an intergovernmental agreement between Rutherford County and the City of Murfreesboro regarding utility installation along Asbury Road. This installation will be for sanitary sewer and stormwater, and it will service the Kingsbury subdivision. This particular subdivision requires some very deep work that will run alongside in the right-of-way of Asbury Lane, I believe it is. Asbury Lane, Asbury Lane. No, it's Asbury Road, I'm sorry. Okay. And the Highway Department really does not have the resources or equipment necessary to maintain this work after it's installed, the sanitary sewer and storm sewer. And it's going to be installed in some places. It's going to require a 15-foot cut, and it will be right off the edge of the existing pavement. So quite a bit of the road will be destroyed, and most of the road will probably be compromised. So what we've asked for is because this Kingsbury subdivision is a city project, we've asked for the city to take control of, take responsibility for inspecting and maintenance moving forward on that stretch of road. This is very similar to what already exists, what's known as a Southwest Loop Agreement for portions of Veterans Parkway. And this is very similar to that agreement. So there's a lot of back and forth between the city attorney and our attorney, and Mike Hughes, our county engineer, had a lot of input trying to get this agreement drafted to the point where we could have a final. So it will require the signature of our mayor, and so we felt like, and Josh agreed, that it should be presented here at PW and then moved on to the full commission, so that when the mayor signs it, everybody will know what's going on.
All right.
There should be in the packets I handed out. There's a small map, and Mike Hughes was kind enough to print off some larger maps if you would like to review those, but it's the same thing, but there's a little more detail about what the project actually looks like.
Mr. Brooks, may I ask you a question?
Please.
To what extent of Asbury Road are we giving or deeding or asking the city to take over? Is it from
We're
an
just asking
intersection
them
to
to take over the maintenance and well, all of the inspections and that portion moving forward, and then the maintenance after the fact.
Is it
So
just,
no, we're not deeding them anything. We're
Okay.
not giving up. It's not really an annexation.
okay, so
It's just a maintenance agreement, basically.
when you say,
It'll be from Horde Road to the west,
okay,
to the creek where they will connect to the existing sewer and overall creek. This map is a little better. This map that Mike brought in is a little better.
okay. And the maintenance going forward is just sewer related or includes asphalt road surface on down? Okay, all right. So let me ask you another question. Okay. At some point in time, let's say that section would need a traffic light. Is that on us or would that be on the city?
I honestly can't answer that.
Okay,
That would be the intersection of Asbury Road and Asbury Lane. Signalization, I think, would, I can't answer
All
that
right.
with certainty.
all right. And the only reason I ask is because you mentioned the Southwest Loop.
Yeah.
And that rang a bell because on Veterans and Barfield,
Right, that's
there was a
correct.
debate about who was going to be responsible for that traffic light. And I think we wound up splitting some costs on that.
I really believe that all the responsibility that will be passed to them will just be for the maintenance.
Okay, all right. All right. Are there any other questions for Mr. Brooks? Yes, sir. You're recognized.
Yes.
Greg, will this be for duration of the 3-year warranty period or in perpetuity?
Definitely moving forward.
Any other questions for Mr. Brooks regarding this particular item?
Yeah, I've got one. At whose expense is this, Mr. Brooks?
Any expenses incurred will be either the developer or the city,
Not the county.
not the county. That's what I was trying to avoid, actually, because this is a city project after all. Well, it's a project inside the city. It's really not a city project per se.
All right. This is not the conclusion of your report, though, is it? Don't you have other items?
This is it.
This is it? All right. If there are no more questions, I would entertain a motion to accept this report, and then we would also, in that motion, to move this forward to full commission for their review.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
Thank you.
All right, buildings and codes, Tanya? And have you passed anything out, or are we all on the pad tonight? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And let me remind everybody here that somewhat different than our normal room that has mics that will pick us up, please be sure and speak into your microphone.
All right, so I'm going to start with our monthly report. We issued a total of 193 permits in the month of February. 45 of those were single-family dwellings. Down a little bit from January, but I think we've seen a little bit of a peak in January because of our code adoption. For a revenue of $70,692. We also issued 578 electrical permits this month, past month, sorry. The second sheet I gave, the permits issued by fiscal year 18-19 that I gave you. The first sheet on your iPad had the permit count included electrical permits, and I thought that that kind of threw out all the count off a little bit, so I removed those, and that's that second sheet that I just gave you. So you'll notice that the permit count in December, January, and February was really high. That was it because it included the electrical permits. So I took those back out again so that you could review the numbers as we have in the past. All right, if you have no questions. Development tax, we collected $202,500 in the month of February. All right, and inspections, we did a total of 1,153 building inspections in February, in addition to 150 zoning inspections.
Any questions on Tanya's report before we go into, I guess your budget would be next, right?
Sorry?
That concludes that, other than your budgets?
That's
left?
that's the monthly report, yeah.
Any questions for Tanya? If not, I would need a motion to accept those.
Move to approve her report as presented.
Thank you. We have a motion. Need a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Motion carries. Thank you, Tanya. Continue.
All right, so we will move to the fiscal year 1920 budget. And the handouts that I just gave you included a piece of paper that's double-sided. That's a headline. The header on it is inspection and regulation. And I have just completed a narrative of all the line items in my budget. Anything in green is either no change or a reduction, and anything in red is an increase. And then with a little bit of an explanation as to why there's a difference. So I'll start at the top, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to stop me. Administration, there is no change. The salary and personnel, deputies, clerical, there is no change with the exception of the part-time line item. If you'll recall that I added a part-time employee in December to help with electrical inspections. So that line item is added into this budget, where there was none last year. Moving on to board and committee member fees. And if you don't mind, I would like to come back to that because I've got the Board of Adjustments and Appeals to talk about after this, and there's an increase, there's a difference in that line item, and I'd like to explain why when we get to that. Communication, no change. Data processing, no change. Dues and memberships, no change. Maintenance agreement. If you will recall, the software that we purchased last year for electronic plans review, permitting, and inspections included a $90,000 annual maintenance agreement, which is going to come out of the building codes budget for the software for building codes, planning and engineering, and the stormwater department. So that maintenance agreement covers all three departments. So the other $2,000 is maintenance for our copiers. Postal charges, there's no change. Printing and stationery, we reduced that. We have, we print a lot of our own letterhead and envelopes and stuff like that. So the printing we mainly use for correction notices and stickers that we put out on the job and brochures and flyers and stuff that we provide out front for our customers. Travel is reduced by $200. Last year we had, at the request of Mayor Burgess, we had combined travel and in-service staff and development. And we had, through the year, we use our in-staff service and development for code books and classes and recertification hours and any fees or anything that we've got to do to pay the state or anything along with our recertification. Travel is what it is travel. So we had a hard time deciphering what was being used, what was left, what was available, so I would like to try and divide those two line items again this year. It was just hard to keep track of last year, so we're dividing those back out again. Contracted services, there was no change. Gasoline, we went up $2,000 this year just because at this point in the year, it looks like we're extremely close, and we may just have to go for a budget amendment before the end of the year. Office supplies was no change. Uniforms, in the past, the Building Codes Department had a budget of $600 for uniforms. We have 14 people in our department, and it was enough to get us one shirt apiece with a logo on it, sometimes two if we shopped really well. I would really like to provide uniforms for our field inspectors, our building inspectors and our zoning enforcement inspectors. They don't have any way of people identifying them short of the vehicle that they show up in. And if that's in the driveway or if it's parked in where someone can't see it, they don't know who's coming to the door. So nothing fancy, but something along the lines of what the PAWS inspectors wear, maybe a pair of cargo pants and a polo shirt with our logo and their name on it. So this budget, I've increased, it was $600 and I've increased it to $2,500. I did some research, and $2,500 will allow me to provide each of the inspectors, the 10 field inspectors that we've got, with 2 uniforms apiece for the first year. And then next year, possibly one more, and then after that, it would just be maintenance. It would just be a new shirt when it's required or a new pair of pants when it's required. Is there any questions with that one?
Uniforms be mandatory to wear?
Yes, they will. If we get this in our budget and we provide them, yes, I will make them mandatory. When they're out in the field, they will have to wear them.
2 shirts won't be enough.
Well, they've got some. We've provided one shirt apiece for the last few years, so some of them have some. Unfortunately, we've never been consistent with the color. We've allowed them to pick their own color, and sometimes they look more like Care Bears than they do building inspectors, so because they wear different colors. So I'd like to be consistent and provide them with consistent uniforms.
Will this be something that dry cleaning will be involved in?
No, they're going to have to do their own. And they're all okay with it. We have discussed it. I mean, they're all fine with it. Anyone else? Nope.
So really, I'm trying to follow across. Your really request from last year is minimal.
We've always had 600. It's been 600 as long as I can remember. And with 15 people, 14 people, that's enough for one shirt and then getting the logo put on it.
Okay.
So they get one shirt, sometimes 2 if they desperately need it.
All right. Okay. Continue on.
And other supplies and materials, there was no change. In service and staff development, that was the line item that we brought out of travel. So that last year that was 0 because we didn't have that was combined with travel. And then data processing equipment, we will reduce that by $3,000. Last year I had put enough in the budget to purchase iPads for our new software, and we have in fact got them on order for this year. And so next year we will not need that, the extra monies. And then vehicles, I didn't put anything in there. All of our building inspector vehicles are new for the most part. For the last 4 years, we've been purchasing new vehicles for the building inspectors. The zoning inspectors' vehicles are 130 to 160 miles, just 1,000 miles on those, but they don't drive near the miles that the building inspectors drive. So they're good for a little while.
if my math is right, you're only at about a 6.6% increase.
And that would include the $90,000 maintenance
Yeah.
charge that wasn't in there last year.
Yeah, you were going to go back, I think, and chat about that. You wanted to,
No, the maintenance agreement, that was the software. It
Okay.
was the board and committee member fees we were going to talk about, the Board of Adjustments and Appeals. And let me just run that. Last month, I brought you the Board of Adjustments and Appeals, and you took it to the county commission. I'll answer some questions on that in a few minutes. But the Board of Adjustments and Appeals has always existed. It's existed since the late 80s. And it's always been in my budget to pay. It's always been compensated, and it's been in my budget as far back as I can see to pay for one meeting a year, which is mandatory. The Board of Adjustments and Appeals, as it's written right now, only meets when it's required, or one time a year, which is mandatory. So the funding in the line item in past years has allowed for that one meeting. I think last year I increased it maybe to 2 because I anticipated maybe just in case we had another one. Yeah, I did. It was $1,000 last year, but we only used 600 of it. There is 5 members in the board. They get $150 per meeting. We only paid $600 because only 4 members showed up at the last meeting. Excuse me, $600 because 4 members showed up.
if the committee will remember at the last full commission, the resolution that I botched up was this Board of Appeals is a current, long-time running
Right.
committee. And Commissioner Stevenson asked the question to me, which I did not know the answer about pay. They are paid
They are currently compensated, always have been.
at $150
Per member, per meeting.
member per meeting. But you only had one meeting, or 2 meetings last year. One meeting last year.
We had 2 meetings last year, one in each fiscal year. So we
Right.
had one in fiscal
Right.
year 17-18 and one in 18-19.
What the resolution that I will read again this coming meeting to clarify was what we're doing with that group is adding some more responsibilities, stormwater, and what else?
Some local ordinances that don't have a means of appeal currently. We have the noise ordinance, we have the Vacant and Dilapidated Structure Act, we have the stormwater ordinance. None of those ordinances have a means of appeal. The BZA can't hear them because they're not part of the zoning ordinance. They're all local ordinances. And the Board of Adjustments and Appeals, as it stands right now, can't hear them because they're just governed under the building code, and these local ordinances aren't in the building code. So I talked to Josh last year and Mayor Ketron, and to see if it was possible to expand the duties of the Board of Adjustments and Appeals to allow them to hear any appeals should we receive them from the noise ordinance, the Vacant and Dilapidated Structure Act, and the stormwater ordinance. And Josh said yes, it was perfectly legal. The mayor agreed with it, and so I rewrote the ordinance to better define what they do. The ordinance, the biggest change from the committee, the way it stood before, is that this one will be set every month, but it will not be held unless it's needed, which I don't anticipate any more than the 1 or 2 that we have a year right now, but I put enough money in the budget to allow for 1 a quarter. I really don't anticipate having to use all that, or there being 1 a quarter, but I don't know that, so.
Okay. So you've added
I added enough for 4
You've got
meetings.
$3,000 in there this year, which is more than most, but you're just trying to cover yourself in
Right.
case there's
and
extra meetings.
Yes, and I don't anticipate having to use it all, but I want to put it in there just in case.
Okay, all right. Any questions? Yes, Mr. Rather, Commissioner Rather?
I want to go back to the uniforms for just a second. So you hand out the uniforms to your employees, and 6 months later, for whatever reason, an employee leaves. Are you going to get the uniforms
Well,
back?
I do have a little bit of cushion in that number. Not a whole lot, but enough to buy a uniform if it's needed.
but you're not going to, the employee that quit or whatever, you're not going to get that, they're going to be able to take their uniforms with them? if
No,
they're-
no, they would have to return them.
They'll have to turn them
Yeah.
in?
I mean, the shirts, I wouldn't think, but the pants that we have on order are pretty heavy-duty pants. They're more, we got them out of Larry Farley's, where he gets his pants, their pants, so they're pretty sturdy pants. So I would think we can always adjust those, or,
I would even be concerned with them keeping the shirts with it having the logo on there.
well, it would have their name on one side, so it's
Well,
going to have the county logo on
That's where I was
one
going
side.
next. If you were going to take the uniforms back, you may want to think about not putting their names on them.
Right.
Or, well, no, just not putting their name.
The shirts
I
are-
just wondered if you,
The shirts are usually the first to wear down, so I don't anticipate having to take those back.
okay,
I would just let them keep the shirts.
thank you.
If there are any more questions on her budget, let's ask those now. Otherwise, we need to get a motion to accept her budget into the report.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
one more question.
Yes, please.
Have you and Mayor Ketron and Lisa gone through this budget?
Yes.
And
Yes, we have.
y'all have had a consensus thus far?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
You agree? Lisa's not here?
I'm sure it's made the first pass.
Yeah,
Yeah. All right.
But just to see it clearly, I'm seeing a $55,000 increase.
Correct, but $90,000 of that comes from the software. So if you took that out, it's really a 45
And
or
the
35.
software's a one-time capital purchase.
Well, it's
or would
every
it be a
year. It's
maintenance? Okay,
annual
it's
for
a
the next 5
maintenance, okay.
years. Correct.
Any other questions? All right, I need a motion to accept the budget report.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. All right, you have a
I have
resolution update?
the resolution to, about the Board of Adjustments and Appeals.
All right.
There was some questions at the County Commission. I'm sorry I was unable to make it. My daughter had surgery that day, and it ran till well after 6 o'clock. But one of the questions was compensation. And have I covered that, or does anybody have any questions on that? Right. The other one was, does it need to be televised? And it has not in the past. Nobody's ever required it to be televised. Our annual meeting is usually just an annual meeting. There's no hearings or anything. We've had 2 hearings in the last 20 years since I've been here. One was in 2009 and one was last year. I would imagine that the televising of a meeting would probably be a decision that would be either the county attorney or the county commission or the mayor, or I can't imagine that that's a decision I would make. So I will leave that up to you guys.
Are the meetings advertised for the general public?
No, no, they're not.
Yeah, that sounds like a county attorney discussion. When we have one, I guess let's leave it at this. When you have one scheduled,
Okay,
you need to reach out to this body and the county attorney, and then we'll make some decision
got it.
of how that needs to be advertised and/or televised.
Okay.
Okay? Is that fair enough?
All right, and I provided you guys all with a hard copy of this. If you leave here and you have a read at it and you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call. I'll be glad to answer them for you.
Will you prepare a resolution?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. All right.
Okay?
Thank you very much, Tanya. Doug and Mr. Hughes, this is our planning and engineering report.
Evening, Commissioners. Have
Good evening,
several
Doug.
things for you to consider tonight.
Fantastic.
The first item is our available lot inventory. Everything that I'll be talking about today will be on your iPads, and that Mike also will be able to talk to you about will be on your iPads. So that first item, again, is the available lot inventory. You'll notice on page 5 of that first report, the total available lots through February of this year stands at 912. That's up a pretty good clip from last month. Last month was about 830 or so. The reason for such a large increase is we did see several final plats recorded, 2 of which were fairly large sections. One of them was about 68 lots, one of them was 32. So 2 plats in and of themselves created 100 new lots. Of course, this time of year, we're starting to get into the spring. We would expect building permits issuance to increase, but when building permit issuances are down due to the winter months and, of course, the rain and everything we've been having, and you're still recording subdivision sections, you're going to get a little bit of an increase. So that's really the reason behind that. So that's pretty much that report. If you've got any other questions, or any questions on it, I should say, I'll be more than happy to talk about those. If not, the next item on the agenda that we have tonight is regarding a rezoning request that will be brought before you next week. We just have one request. This is for a couple of properties located along New Salem Highway, Highway 99, 2328 and 2348. The applicant's requesting to rezone these properties to commercial services. These are immediately adjacent to property that was just rezoned commercial services by the Board of Commissioners back in January. The applicants would like to facilitate, this is their application, facilitate neighborhoods supporting retail by repurposing the existing structures or by developing new attractive retail buildings. They want to offer low-impact services while being sensitive to the quality of life of nearby residential parcels. They do state that some of the uses they would like to consider would be like hair salons, dental offices, things like that. Excluded uses, and according to their application, would be anything they would consider detrimental to the neighborhood, such as liquor stores, tobacco stores, those type of particular uses. We did have some discussion about that at the Planning Commission, really just to say that if this property is zoned commercial services, you really can't eliminate a particular use, or say a particular use can't be built if it meets the zoning requirements or falls under the particular uses that are allowed in that zone. So just wanted to make sure that that was brought up. Access to both of these would be to Highway 99, which would require state TDOT approval. They would also be required to install Type 2 landscape buffers adjacent to any residentially zoned properties, of which there is some to the west of these tracks, and then to the, I guess that would be to the north as well. The property, again, to the east was zoned back in January. And, of course, performance standards would be something also that they would have to meet as far as noise, odor, dust, and those kind of things. There was, most of the discussion on this item at the Planning Commission was focused on the requested zoning for the property. Originally, their application, they asked for commercial neighborhood, which is a step down from commercial services. I had reached out to the applicants and just inquired to them as far as, why they were asking for commercial neighborhood, would like to be consistent with the other properties. They agreed they would, so that's what we ended up going with in the agenda. The mail-out, I will say, the mail-out kept the original, Mr. Cush, as you remember at the Planning Commission, that was a typo on our part. We did resend those notices for this upcoming meeting with the commercial services designation. I don't feel that's a problem, but I did want to bring that to your attention as it did come up at the Planning Commission's meeting. After discussion, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of that request by a unanimous vote, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding that application.
Any questions for Doug? All right, we need to approve those 2 reports. So I'll need a motion. Are there any questions?
Motion to approve.
Okay, thank you. Need a second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Doug, looks like you have some budget discussion?
Yes, sir. But before we get to that,
okay.
if I could do the change to the stormwater ordinance.
Yes, sir.
This kind of plays along with the discussion that Ms. Bell just had regarding the changes that she made to the Construction Board of Adjustment and Appeals. As she stated, originally currently, I should say, in the stormwater ordinance, it does have the Board of Zoning Appeals as the body to hear appeals regarding stormwater enforcement issues. As Ms. Bell stated, that's not really a power that the Board of Zoning Appeals has granted, so she's made the changes that you had just recently considered and approved, and all we're doing here is, for consistency, is making that same change, changing the Board of Zoning Appeals to the county's Board of Adjustment and Appeals. Nothing else here is changing. It's just for consistency's sake.
All right.
And this will have to go for a public hearing to the Board of Commissioners next week, and it's been properly advertised.
All right. Do we need a motion to move this forward, or is this?
I think you need a motion.
Okay. Then, any questions for Doug on this? Anyone? If not, do we need a motion to move this forward to the full commission?
So moved.
Motion to move it forward to the full commission.
All right, we have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Doug.
Now, if you're okay, I can go ahead and
Please.
start our budget discussion. Again, our budget materials will be on your iPad. What we did, and Mike will follow myself, regarding the stormwater budget, but we'll start with the planning and engineering budget. We put all three of the documents for planning and engineering into one PDF file, so you'll have that, and the same for the stormwater budget as well. Overall, you'll see that our budget is going up by about $73,000, a little over $73,500 is the total increase of our budget. I'll just kind of hit some of the high points here. Most of the first half of the budget, a lot of that is dealing with the salary issues, insurance, Social Security, those things. Those are numbers that are calculated through finance or through the calculator they give us, and we put that on there. I will point out that the board and commission fees, which is item number 191, is kind of toward the first third or so of the budget. You will notice that that's going up from $30,000 to $47,000. That increase is reflective of the change to the stipends that the Planning Commission and Board of Zoning Appeals have from $100 a meeting to $150. You'll see that the budget amendment earlier this year was for $17,000, so we just added the two together and gives us $47,000 to reflect the new payment for board and commission fees. We didn't make any changes to our training line item, nor did we make anything to our line item for communication. I'll come back to the consultant line item. That's really the largest change that we see. Memberships, dues and memberships has not changed. We've left that the same. The bulk of that cost is for the Metropolitan Planning Organization membership that we're a part of, along with several other municipalities and counties in this region. One of the differences between this budget and previous budgets, you'll notice for line item 330, operating lease payments. Originally, we had some money in the motor vehicle line item, which is line item 718. We're looking to replace 3 of our inspector vehicles. We're using vehicles that are fairly aged and have a lot of miles on them. Mike's got some more detailed information on that if you want to talk about that.
We have 3 that we'd like to replace. The oldest has over 200,000 miles. It's a 2003 Chevy Silverado, and it is a 2x4. And Building and Codes was gracious enough to hand it down to us after they were through using it. So it's seeing some age and wear and tear, so it's definitely needing to be replaced. We have some other vehicles that are extremely old. We have a 98 GMC Sonoma that's up in mileage, 154,000 miles on it. And then we have a Dodge Ram that's getting pretty old with 137,000 miles on it. And we're putting on about 15 to 18,000 miles per year on these vehicles, so they're getting old and they're harder to maintain. So like Doug was saying, we're going to try the lease option to try to get new vehicles and replace these aging ones that are getting harder and harder to maintain.
Chairman?
You're recognized.
Are those the leased vehicles through what company?
The Enterprise.
Enterprise,
Yes,
okay.
sir. Yes, sir. And that's the program the Mayor Ketchern has introduced.
Is anybody else, will we see any more of those vehicles from other departments?
Exactly how many or which departments, I'm not sure, but, yeah, but I think you'll see others, because,
Several from the Sheriff's Department,
Right.
EMS. Let's see.
yeah, we spoke with the representative today, and she had mentioned that there were several other departments that she was working with, so this probably won't be
There
the
was,
first
yeah,
time you
like
see this,
60 vehicles they were looking to
or the only
replace.
time, yeah.
And so I know you went through, tell me again how many you're replacing, or what are we acquiring, rather, for this 23? Okay.
One relatively new inspector vehicle that we can maintain, but some of these are just are harder and harder to maintain. They're getting older and showing their age.
How many total vehicles are in your fleet? So, okay, all right.
And what three are you acquiring for this 23,000?
I'd like the Chevy Silverado, the 2003, the 98 GMC Sonoma, if I could, and possibly the 2000 Jeep Cherokee.
That's what you're replacing? Yes. Yeah, I'm asking, what do you intend to acquire? Yeah.
Just a basic tradesman Ram 1500 truck, 4x4 though, and we did ask for a V8 engine, a little bit more power.
What kind of cab?
It's a crew cab, but it's not the full crew cab. It's more of a reduced.
Door and a half, kind of? Okay.
We do store equipment, and we'd like to lock it in the back of the vehicle.
And along with those vehicles, you'll notice the last line item there, transportation equipment, we put $1,000 in there. That'd be for mounting toolkits in the back, kind of like those metal toolkits, toolboxes, I'm sorry, not toolkits, toolboxes, I can change that, apologize. Moving on with some of the other line items, really no changes to either legal notices, maintenance agreements went up just slightly. That's dealing with office copiers and our plotters and whatnot. Nothing changed on office mailings or maintenance of repair of service equipment that didn't have any contracts with them. No real changes, and a slight, actually, decrease in data processing supplies. The reason for that decrease had to go back to the planning software that we were in the budget last year. The way that was all taken care of, that money is no longer needed in there. We did go up with our gas a little bit by about $1,000 to $8,500. Gas prices for a little bit were pretty high. They have come down. Like Ms. Bell had mentioned, we're probably going to have, I don't think we're even, it's gotten a lot closer, but I don't think we're going to have a choice but to do a little budget amendment before the end of the fiscal year. So you'll probably see something coming to you rather in the next couple of months. Office supplies went down. We had purchased a piece of equipment for our office out of that, and that was a one-time purchase, so that went back down to $6,250. Our shirts it's not something we require. I'm modeling one right now, as a matter of fact, but it's something that we do make a provision for. Basically, what we do is we take some of that money out of line item 499 and just kind of give every person in the office, say you've got $75, $80, there's a catalog that we use, and you can buy shirts, you can buy a sweatshirt, a sweater, you can buy a hat, some have bought, you can buy a long sleeve, short sleeve shirt, just, within your allotment. So, and that seems to have gone pretty well over the last few years. That seems pretty popular. You'll notice a pretty significant decrease in data processing equipment. We did leave a little money in there for the event if we are able to purchase a tablet for our office, like an iPad or perhaps a Surface tablet or something like that. We might try to see if we can't do that out of some of our funds this year. We'll just have to see how it works out. The biggest change in this budget has to do with going back to the consultant line item 308. Our long-range transportation plan was last adopted in 2004 and then updated in 2006. A small amendment was made. Our comprehensive plan was adopted in 2011, and plans like that, comprehensive plans or long-range plans, really should be updated every 5 to 7 years or so. Obviously, the long-range transportation plan is well beyond that, and the comprehensive plan pretty much is right on that cusp of that threshold, if not past it just a little bit. And what we would like to do, and have talked to Mayor Ketron about, is the possibility of kind of lumping those two together with one update. We've talked to a couple consultants just to get some general ideas of some costs, as well as reaching out to the Greater Nashville Regional Council, GNRC, for some services they could provide. And what you're seeing there, we expect it to be a couple-year process, and some of the, depends on how much work and how in-depth you get, but some of the estimates we received could be anywhere from $200,000 to $500,000. Some other information we received would be closer to $200,000. So what we're budgeting in here is roughly half of what that cost would be over the next couple fiscal years. So I think this is something that we really need to do. As you know, you don't see us up here very often asking for large ticket items. So when you do, we do present something like that, you know it's important, something that we think really needs to be done. So that's why that is included in this budget. And quite frankly, when you look at our overall budget, if it's not for that, we actually have a budget decrease. So most of our increase is due to that particular line item.
And that will coordinate with the town of Smyrna and the city of Murfreesboro,
Yes.
their transportation plans
Correct.
as well. So
Yeah.
we're all talking together and
Right. And,
coordinating.
right, and they've updated theirs just within the last, both of them, have within the last 2 to 3 years, they've both updated their plans, their long-range plans, transportation. So that's pretty much just a quick overview, I guess, which wasn't so quick, but the overview of our budget. So if you, for planning and engineering, if you have any questions on that, if not, I'll turn it over to Mike and let him handle the stormwater side of things.
All right. I think we should go ahead and make a motion to accept the planning budget separately from the stormwater.
May I ask a question, please?
Sure, you may. You're recognized, Commissioner.
The long-range traffic study is transportation
plan.
study. 200,000 and up is
Well,
kind
this
of
would be for
this is
everything.
half.
Yeah, this would, right, this would be for the long-range transportation plan and for the comprehensive plan. They'd kind of work in tandem.
And y'all feel, I'm just going to ask again, you feel strongly about it as a tool
Yes.
that's worth
Absolutely.
that tremendous investment?
Yes, considering all the changes, especially that have happened in Rutherford County, and I mean, as a whole, since 2004, the last time that this was comprehensively looked at and adopted, it's time. It's really time.
One last question. Where are your engineers, Mike? Is this going to be on the stormwater or?
I have one stormwater engineer on the stormwater budget, and then we share an engineer with Public Works.
Okay.
With the highway.
So obviously not reflected here.
The inspectors, the construction inspectors are in
Construction-
this budget.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have 3 construction inspectors on planning and engineering and 1 on stormwater budget.
Question to be for the mayor. I can remember us going over the enterprise pitch and the people coming to the meetings and all. Did we approve this on a commission level to lease these vehicles through enterprise?
No, sir, not at the full commission. We have not. Each department has been coming in. We've asked each department to meet with Enterprise, basically just to see what the cost would be to start out with replacing some of their vehicles. Because our fleet is so aged. We have one that's a 1991 that's on the current fleet. If that's the direction that the commission would like to follow, yeah, we'd be happy. If you want to sit through another presentation at the full commission, we can have Enterprise come and do that at the next full commission meeting.
Really doesn't matter to me, but I thought it might ought to go through the full commission for approval, and that would cancel out any questions or whatever. I don't see any need of having another presentation. Could we not put it on the agenda for the full commission meeting to vote?
Sure, yeah, we can do that. You know, it
Just a
comes down,
simple vote.
I think you all heard the presentation made by Enterprise. It's a different type of lease that used to be available back in the 90s, and so it's either do we conserve our cash flow, or do we go through lease and put our employees into new, safer vehicles where we're not spending, everything should be covered under the 3-year or 4-year lease new car warranty, except for tires maybe, that on some of our departments that may wear out. So it'll be the option of each department based on the department when they come before you to present. They can either purchase or lease. So we can bring it back through if you want to do it as a whole, or I think you were looking at 3 vehicles, $75,000 without a lease. Yeah, 75. And of course, the lease is not, the lease figure at this point won't be really accurate because it won't go into effect until after the budget goes into effect, so whatever the pricing may be at that point in time after July 1. These are just estimates of what they're estimating the cost would be to compare to what the replacement value of $75,000 for 3 vehicles would cost. But if that's a request of the commission, I'll be happy to put that on the agenda.
And just one more item. They work with the manufacturers to get rebates and discounts to make the vehicles comparable to what we get on state bid. So we're getting a pretty good deal on these vehicles as it is, what they've got it set up.
Mr. Sandon, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, commission members, Mayor, he's kind of put me in touch with, actually Enterprise come and gave their presentation. We come to this committee and, gave a presentation. So basically we were building the package, so to speak, to show the commission at end of budget season before everything is done as far as the mayor's request coming to the full commission in its entirety as far as breakdown in departments. And there's going to be 2 levels of that. There's going to be the purchase. If we purchase, we may only be in for 1 vehicle or no vehicles. If we do the lease, then there may be 3 vehicles or 2 vehicles for this department, or 1 or none. So it was really getting it all together, seeing what the need was for each department before coming back to the commission and letting them know this is how many, this is the mileage, these are our maintenance problems. We either need to purchase, lease, what's the best move for the county at that point. So that's what we're trying to get to the end picture, to show you that big picture and not give you a kind of one department kind of thing. It's going to be the whole county as far as county general. Sheriff's Department is looking at them because they can do the light package and all that they need and all that sort of stuff. So there's a few there. We'll get that total and get it back to the commission and budget and go through the process, though. I just wanted to add that, Mayor.
Makes sense. Okay, thank you. All right. Did we vote on his budget? Oh, okay. We need a motion for the planning budget approval.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor of the planning budget approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Doug. All right, Mr. Hughes, you're on.
Thank you, Chairman Cush. On your iPads, you'll also find a packet with the stormwater management budget in it. And I should note that we have lost our stormwater engineer to the sunny state of Florida. So we are currently in search of another stormwater engineer. I've left the stormwater line item for assistant, which is the stormwater engineer, at its same amount with a slight step increase, the normal step increase. So I'm keeping it in that range that KDP had before she left us. I did add a couple $1,000s more on part-time personnel. We have a project wet coordinator, which is we share with the municipalities, but her salary is locked in currently at $20,800, which is the same as it was last year. We do hire 2 to 3 summer interns to walk the streams, which is part of our requirements to the state annual report that we have to make to TDEC every year. The increase in that would be to hire back a previous intern to oversee the other 2 interns, to kind of give them a little bit supplement in pay. But let's see. Other wages and salaries have essentially been the same. We have a stormwater inspector who has been with us several years. He has his normal step increase. We've kept our training the same. Let's see. Phones have stayed the same. Our inspector dues and engineer dues and membership to the various organizations have stayed the same. We've decreased our postal charges. We've kept business card and inspection forms the same. Travel, we've kept the same. Let's see. Other contracted services, we have to pay TDEC $3,500 a year to be part of their MS4 permit program. And then also we pay, out of that, we pay $6,000 a year to the MTSU Biology Department who do the stream, the sampling of the invertebrate sampling that their biology department takes care of for us. And that goes into our 5-year cycle we have to turn back into the state. Let's see. Fuel we kept the same. We felt we had enough money in this year's budget and enough for our full-time inspector, our engineer when we hire another one, and our two to three summer interns. They share a vehicle, a couple vehicles. What they'll do is they'll park one vehicle at the beginning of the stream or the end of the stream, and then they'll hop into the vehicle and drive down to the end of the stream. They'll walk back through the stream doing their inspection, and then with that vehicle at the end of the stream, they'll drive and get the other vehicle. So they have to leapfrog back and forth like that. Let's see. Our other supplies and materials, we've kept the same. Data processing equipment, we've kept the same. And then we're not asking for a new vehicle on this budget or any equipment to go along with that. So we've got a modest increase, I think less than $7,000 on there to from our budget from last year.
All right. Any questions for our county engineer?
Yes, sir, please.
You're recognized, Mr. Dodd, Commissioner Dodd.
Mike, your engineer salary has stayed static in the new budget.
Yes, that we thought it best just to advertise what we could offer this time and see what applications we got with that salary, but knowing what the highway department's gone through trying to get another public works engineer, we'll most likely need to increase that to be more competitive.
So that might be a budget amendment?
Yes.
I know we have a couple of months yet to go, but are you beholden to a payroll table from HR department?
Yes, we are. We're tied to that.
Is that table set in stone as a policy or a guidelines?
It's a policy that was approved through the county commission to offer the 50% percentile, so kind of like right in the middle of the pay range of what comparable positions are offering. So it's, on a robust economy like we're having right now, positions are tight and new candidates are tight, even tighter. So we'll most likely need to reevaluate this by the time we get to full budget or soon after to maybe bump the pay up.
I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you know how often that particular pay scope that she uses is updated?
I believe Sonia reevaluates it every year and then presents that to the county commission to look at lifting the pay tables, and I don't know when the last time that was done. I mean, that we have the normal step increases from year to year that's established in that pay range, but to be more competitive, we're going to need to look at raising that pay table.
I just want to acknowledge that Greg and Mike are down 2 engineers, and we've seen 3,000 lots in old inventory, 600 in new inventory. We've seen inner city workings with roadways.
Yeah.
with the city. I mean, we've got so much work going on, and these guys are desperate for staff. You've
Right.
got to have professional engineers to guide this county, so we just want to keep our eye on that and
Yes, sir.
give you some
Thank you.
support.
Yes, sir.
And to add on to that, Commissioner Don, seeing the salary layout, you and I both know, because we're both in the industry, that you could not get anybody to work for that amount of money. So, all right.
And Deputy Sandlin did tell me that the mayor is looking at raising the pay table. So we're,
Thank you. Before you leave,
Yes, sir.
any questions on the stormwater budget? Uh-oh, there's trouble.
I typically don't, interject when somebody's presenting of their budget, but I would like to point out that we've had a posting open for quite some time, and we're getting very little response to it, trying to hire these engineers. So, I mean, that posting has been up for off and on since
since the holidays.
right after
right
Christmas,
yeah.
like the 26th of December, and we're just having very little response.
And your
we know
posi-
there's graduating classes from tech and different colleges and EITs aren't applying.
You have a posting for a civil open right now.
Well, the first posting that came open was the Highway Department's PW engineer.
Public
Okay.
Works engineer.
Yeah.
And then
So now that Miss Katie's
Katie's left for
stormwater.
Florida, so we've lost another engineer.
Right.
They're both civils. They're EITs or PEs, both, yeah.
Yeah. So there's two problems. Not only are there not enough bodies out there, but the pay is also the second problem. Yeah.
Apparently, we're just not competitive on the pay. That's-
Yeah, oh, I know you're not. Yeah. Okay. We would need a motion to approve his budget report.
So moved.
And a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Sereno. All those in favor, please signify aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Hughes.
Thank
All right. Let me find all my papers here. We are ready to proceed to, let me make sure I have all my asterisks checked here. All right, we're going to move to the landfill report, but Mac Nolan has graciously asked that he be moved back in time to allow for a few presentations for us. And commissioners, I'm going to ask our mayor to introduce a few folks, and while he does that, it would probably be best for us to move down so we can get a good view of the screen. Mayor Ketron, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee. And let me, since you're moving, I'll move around this way also. Mr. Chairman, you asked me at the last committee meeting, or at the last Public Works Committee meeting, prior to our trip to California last week, to come back and give a full comprehensive report and then make a recommendation from the mayor's office as to what direction our county should be traveling dealing with our solid waste. We've been dealing with this for some 29 years, from the time that I first got elected to this commission in 1990, and we continue to kick the can further down the road, and it's now time that we choose a direction, become focused, and start addressing our solid waste issues, and start preparing ourselves to be the #1 county in the state of Tennessee as far as setting the gold standard for all other counties to address and meet that gold standard on how we handle our solid waste. So week before last, there were 16 of us that went to California, went to San Jose, California, and to southern San Francisco to look at 2 facilities. We have some video, some pictures and video that we'll go through in just a moment, and then I'll bring up another guest in a few moments right after the videos that we look at who attended with us. We had all 4 cities representing: Smyrna, Laverne, Eagleville, and the members from the county commission comprehensively, because this is not just a Rutherford County issue. It encompasses all of Rutherford County. All citizens who are taxpayers in Rutherford County have got to address this, and we all need to be working on this issue together. You'll see some interesting things that are happening on the West Coast as far as how those large communities are handling with very strict local, state regulations, their waste stream, and hopefully we'll be able to encompass some of those. I want to say thank you to Republic for inviting the delegation from Rutherford County to come out. They were very professional, very informed for our delegation. They are very experienced in this line of business, and I think all those who may have had some preconceived ideas before we made this trip came away with a different reflection on the way that waste is being handled. So I'm going to let Mr. Sandlin start out, and we'll start with the slide presentation, then a short little clip on another facility. We first went to San Jose, California. Then Republic was able to provide transportation to go see another facility, a composting facility, in the southern part of San Francisco, which is about 90 miles to the north. It was a separate company, didn't have anything to do with Republic, but they provided transportation for us to go up and at least see, because we were so close, how another company was handling the waste stream in that southern, I won't say a city, but they're in southern San Francisco, but it was a city. We were supposed to travel then the next day to Las Vegas to look at the newest and largest recycling facility in the country outside of Las Vegas. And adjacent to that, or close by, was a large pig swine farm, where Las Vegas has joined together in working with Republic at this swine farm. They have several thousand pigs, and they have diverted over 42% of the waste stream by collecting all of the food waste from all the hotels, restaurants, and casinos in the greater Las Vegas area. And taking that 42% waste stream from going into the landfill, they've taken it over, they heat it, process it, and feed it to the pigs. And then I'm sure the pigs are processed and sold back to the hotels for bacon. You know, circle of life, but that's what we all do. But it's keeping it out of the landfill. Unfortunately, we were unable to make that because it snowed 2 inches in Las Vegas, and they shut the airport down. It hadn't snowed there since '08, I think, was the last snow that they actually had. They didn't know how to handle it, and so we couldn't get out. We tried and tried. We looked at every airline, and everything was full going in there, except for Southwest. All flights were canceled. We even looked at renting a car and driving, but it was 8 hours and 4 minutes, and we chose not to do that, so we just came on back home. Maybe at some other later point in time we can go back out and actually visit that facility, because I'm anxious to see. I even took an extra pair of clothes in a trash bag to put my clothes in, because they said that the smell will actually permeate your clothes, and you don't want to wear those back into the hotel. So Mr. Sandlin, if you will, show us some
Thank you, Mayor.
part of the slides.
Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners, the mayor's kind of stole part of my thunder here, but I'm gonna go through this thing and let you show this first PowerPoint here, right here, Rutherford County, Tennessee, West Coast Solid Waste Disposal Tour in February 2021. We actually came back the 22nd on that Friday because of the mayor's reasons there. Purpose of the trip, the next step to exploring our solid waste disposal options. This is a list of all the folks that went on our trip. A lot of folks, of course, we had the county, city of Murfreesboro, city of Smyrna, Eagleville, Laverne, everybody in as far as the city municipalities with the county were represented, as well as our solid waste director, and then Becky Caldwell with the Greater National Regional Council was there. Very helpful, very knowledgeable also. She's a sharp lady about, as we call it, talking trash. You know, she can do it. And of course, then Seema Prasad with us, and I think the mayor introduced her there too. This right here kind of shows where we started, you know, in Rutherford County and went all the way over. It gives you a big zoom. If you're up close, it kind of gives you a headache, but that's where we landed. I love this Google Earth stuff. It's pretty cool. Republic Service here on Newbie Island. That was the next spot there. And I know Seema's going to kill me for this because I had another shot that had her eyes open, but anyway, this is the one that made it, so I'm sorry for that. You'll just have to, well, I'm sorry. She's talking about right here, this is where we got on the bus and go to our first location about zero waste as we were approaching the facility there on the bus from the airport. This is our gang. Right here, we arrived at zero waste at Pleasant Hill, California. The photo on the left right there shows, for those of you who went to up in Sevierville, you saw the 3 type Bedminster type tubes for your solid waste digester type thing. And I'm not going to steal all the thunder here for Seema. She's got a better plan than I do. But that's us taking a look at it. Notice how clean it is. We were very, very impressed with that situation. Of course, when we started out, this gentleman here is the one that started talking to us there in front of the 8 digesters from the compost and the solid waste. This is some of their solid waste that's dumped into the side, and then they scoop it out and put it into, open up the doors and put it into each individual digester. This is the gas collection system here. Very cool. I mean, as far as how they do it, Seema can go in and tell you a little bit more stuff, information about all the particulars there, but it's a really neat system and really, really clean. I can't say that enough. I mean, it's just pretty awesome. I didn't imagine a facility like this from what we've seen at other sites, and even in Sevierville, you know, that did a great job and had the outcome of it was a very good product, but nothing like this facility as far as cleanness. You don't, I didn't associate waste with this being this clean. Great picture here of Smyrna officials talking to the solid waste director and GNRC about the issue and what they're seeing, what they're looking at and talking about. I took a lot of different pictures here. Very technical process. As you can see, this is the back end part, actually behind the closed doors, behind the digesters themselves. No smells there. We don't have smell-o-vision yet, so, but I can tell you that it was a really cool process right here. The CEO, Eric Herbert, is the one that was actually explaining everything there and the details of the process. This is actually coming out of that room and looking into the back down the line there that you saw. Dual stream trucks. This is what one of them looks like with the 2 different dispensers there. Cost to dump in Pleasant Hill, you may not can see some of those numbers right there. They have it by the ton. Skipping down to special charged items like refrigerator, $25 each, water heaters, $16 each, large appliances, $16, mattresses and box springs, we see those all the time in our convenience centers, $15 each. It's got everything, electric waste, cooking oil, $1 per gallon. Household batteries, $2 a pound. Tires, this was one of the most amazing things, $11 to $25 depending on the size. Pretty cool to see what they're charging and a lot of things there that's going into the solid waste there. Right beside San Francisco Bay and airport. The airport's right across the bay, or this airport. This is a subsidiary to the main airport that we flew into. But what I thought was pretty impressive, you got a green strip that they mow the grass, and here comes a truck in to go through the waste scales. So it was pretty impressive to be a water source right there, and for it to be, you know, right on the water and be that clean. We're going into the Republic Service here. As soon as we finished that location, we went straight over and saw them, the layout of their facility here in the 2 maps. This is Newbie Island landfill. The front entrance of the recycle center, palm trees, The welcome from Republic, as you can tell, we just went through the first one in a long air flight. We're really excited right here. They're handing out the safety gear for us to wear on the site. The natural gas area for the trucks and where they come in and fill the trucks off of the gas lines, they're all lined up right there to kind of show you that. This is the end product of the mulch. Very fine, a good product out on the end product. I can't say enough about that because, in mulching and buying mulch for my house or, anywhere, it's a really good mulch end product right there. Surrounded by the bay area. Back there, you may see a big building in the middle that's kind of a white cap type. That's the actual 49ers where they play football. I thought that was pretty cool. It's just right there. First stage of the mulching area. These pictures kind of go backwards from, we looked at the outside first and then went and looked in the inside. So I'm just kind of leading you along here to. All right, this is the central control. We met when we come in and looked at the conveyors. There's a central control. There's a lot of folks there. It's on a trip right there around the table. To the right, right there's Miss Becky for GNRC and our guy there with Republic that's explaining everything. This is they're monitoring the belts and the trash that's coming through and all the different levels and the weight and all that sort of stuff. And any problems come up, then they get somebody on it quickly. Trash comes in from the trucks and dumped right here. This is right at a day being dumped area. It was going right to the edge of the front of the doors where they come in and actually dump the trash. All of this trash right here that you see will be gone before the end of the day. It's actually picked up with a knuckle boom there, put into the conveyor, and it goes from there. And that's when it starts getting fun. The part of the sorting process, I think got a little video right here. We cut down the sound here because it's very noisy right in there, but this is pulling out. You can see a lot of the metals and different things right there, whether it be silverware, small type stuff. It goes in through a screen type deal, separating the stuff. This is very impressive here, all the workers on the picket, as far as picking lines, picking the cardboard, the plastics, all different kinds of paper and stuff, the tubes there where they can put the lighter weight type plastic up through there, maybe I would say like a grocery bag, a Kroger bag or something like that might go up through there. One of the picking lines sorting cardboard, plastic, wood, paper, and much more. Same thing there. Magnet process coming off. This magnet catches some of the metals, and they got 3 or 4 processes in that. And they have to get to that end product that you saw, and a very high-end product. I mean, they got to go through all that. Public landfill on the bay right there. Again, a picture of their process. Now, this is the brush and compost area. You can see some brush there. This is just an air-type pump system here. They have found out, and they can explain a lot better than I can, but this system pumps air through tubes. Where we saw in Sevierville that they actually windrowed it and rolled it over to get that breakdown. You have to have air, and it does its heat and process or whatever to break it down through the natural way. They just kind of speed that process up a little bit. They pump air through those piles of mulch. It's also in this next slide. If you can see on top of the mulch right here, there's these little flags. In the summertime, of course, a lot hotter over in California than it is here, I guess, but these are monitors. They monitor the heat and what's coming through there, and also kick on for water, and the water goes, they sprays, and of course, part of the process in breaking down. This is a sorting on the C&D site. There's a knuckle boom here kind of in the center between those 2 cars. This is where some employees park here that's working there. This thing, it looks like a bus over here, the red part. That's their picking area. It goes through a grinder right here, and it gets it into a smaller portion. And they're sorting it, and it goes into bins, and then they goes into another process. Again, the mulching operation here for like pallets and all kinds of spools and different things. Yes. Yes.
So that's not piles of mulch, that's
Correct. It's a different process there. They've got it separated and and they can stress on that on what more than I am. I'm just a part-time photographer. Pretty cool process. Republic on the Bay, this is the recycled bales. This is the plastic bales, different types of plastic, the clear plastic from the other kind of plastic, the cardboard. Again, where we are there. Pretty cool, just out in the town area. You go into the mall or you out on the street or somewhere, this is how their bins are labeled. I thought this was pretty wild. Recycle, landfill, and then the green is compost. So, I mean, they're labeled that way. So, pretty neat, kind of educating the public, you know. And then this is a zero waste city. This is another site that we did not see, but this little video I'm going to play for you right here.
Did you know that the urban waste produced from cities around the world is enough to fill a line of garbage trucks stretching more than 3,100 miles? That's a distance from Florida to Washington every day. And things are only expected to get worse. Thankfully, some cities such as San Francisco are paving the way and trying to change the way we think about trash.
San Francisco plans to become zero waste by 2020, which is a pretty ambitious but awesome goal. And this is the main nerve center for all of the city's recyclables. This is where everything ends up to be sorted and processed. What is zero waste?
It's an idea, and it means sending next to nothing to landfills or incinerators.
In 2009, the city passed a law requiring residents and businesses to sort their waste into recyclables, compostables, and landfill trash. Recology is the private company that handles it all.
When I started at Recology 23 years ago, the recycling rate was around 38%. Today, we've more than doubled that.
So far, San Francisco has diverted 80% of its waste away from landfills, and its success has been getting global attention.
Government representatives from all over the world visit this facility to learn about how they might be able to replicate what's being done here. What is the current method of waste management or recycling in your town?
What we have a lot of in Denmark is actually incineration, where you burn the waste.
Do you think that you might implement some of what you've learned here?
One thing that we have heard a lot is the value of composting. We don't do that a lot. So maybe we will go home and do more composting.
San Francisco now collects 650 tons of food scraps, yard trimmings, and other organic waste every day. That material is brought here to be turned into compost.
This is one of the most modern composting facilities in North America.
Okay, so you can see a bunch of stuff here that people have thrown away. Mostly like wood here, a shoe, this flip-flop.
Yeah, there's a...
What's up with shoes?
Well, there's 7 billion people on the planet, so there's a lot of shoes. We're in a culture here in California where people are moving very quickly, and so people make mistakes. So we get the things that are not supposed to be here, we get them removed right away, right at the beginning.
After the waste is ground up and screened for plastic and other bits of trash, the organic matter left over gets watered and aerated. A piping system then filters out dangerous greenhouse gases produced by microbes. In about 60 days, the compost is complete and sold to local organic farmers and vineyards.
How does composting help the environment?
Composting keeps materials out of landfills. It returns nutrients to farms. It reduces the production of very potent greenhouse gases. It attracts and retains water, like rainwater.
I mean, it smells like hell, but it's actually very beautiful what you're describing here. You know, people's food scraps, which might otherwise be waste, comes here to essentially feed these farms and produce new crops.
Well, from this facility, more than 300 vineyards have received the compost and applied it to their vineyards. Farmers are using the compost to grow cover crops that pull carbon out of the atmosphere and return carbon back to the soil. This is one of the best things we can do in an effort to slow down climate change. People have really heard a lot about environmental problems. They want to hear now a lot more about environmental solutions.
How much recycling and composting is there in your town?
SEMA.
Thank you, Mr. Sandlin. Let me introduce Seema, if you want to come on up, and I think we have a presentation for you. Let me introduce Seema Prasad. Seema joined us on this trip and paid her own way because she has a passion for this. I was first introduced to Seema. She's a small restaurateur out in West Nashville. She owns a small French bistro. Great cook, but she decided to open a small restaurant. But her passion is taking care of our solid waste. She knew these folks in California. She's traveled all over the world looking at different facilities. How I met her was through Mandy Young. Mandy was one of the lobbyists that I worked with on the Hill for the last 16 years. Her mother was Judge Barbara Haynes and Senator Joe Haynes. And when she knew that I was running last year, and this is one of my number one priorities, is addressing the issue, she said, "You've got to meet Ms. Prasad, a friend of hers." So she came down and met with us back in maybe October. And then we started talking about this. She came back and was showing us what she's prepared to show you tonight of how we can handle our waste stream. She's working with GNRC. She's working with the mayor in Nashville. But her knowledge is beyond anybody I've ever talked to. So I was very proud to meet her with such knowledge on this same issue and willing to go at her own expense to help us because she lives here and she cares about our future and our economy and the waste stream. Because she lives in Nashville, the waste comes here. All the 23, 24 counties comes here. So she's willing to give of her own time and give some assistance. So I give you Seema Prasad. Seema.
Thank you, Mayor Ketron. I really, really appreciate, I'm going to stand, actually, if that's all right. I'm short, so I'm kind of used to having to stand. Thank you for having me here tonight, and I'm really, really appreciate the opportunity to present this to you because it's something, as of this Friday, I will have been working on for 7 years for Middle Tennessee. As Mayor Ketron said, I own a restaurant. It gives me the opportunity to see significant amounts of waste that can be directed in a way that's beneficial to our community or not. And so when I stopped farming for the restaurant about 7 years ago, I used to take everything out to my farm and compost it. I mean, food waste from the restaurant, that just made sense. We were growing our own produce. Those nutrients went back in the soil. When I stopped farming, there wasn't a place to take it. And when you think of a tiny little restaurant like mine, that's a pretty good amount of waste. What do you think of when there's a huge restaurant? What do you think of when there's a hospital, schools, and stadiums? What kind of waste are we producing? So when I went on this trek, we started looking at other communities that have been successful at diverting their organics waste. And organics waste meaning this could be soiled pizza boxes, because you can't recycle those, right? And those can be food scraps. That can be anything from even some yard trimmings. Things that when they go into the landfill, they break down, they create methane that goes into our air, and they create leachate that goes into our ground. And that compost that is breaking down doesn't actually get to be captured. It doesn't get to be something that's useful that goes back into our community. So all of those are considered organics. Do I tap here, Steve? There we go. So we looked at facilities that were really successful around the world, and the ones that we saw that were most successful were mostly in Europe. They've been doing this for over 30 years. They have much more clean waste streams and much more organized systems for their community to plug into. For the type of system, we'll go over that in a moment, but would allow us to divert what looks like is 30% of our waste stream that is organics into something reusable in our own community. Here's just a rendering that an artist in Franklin sketched for me of what we could actually make it look like. This does not have to be industrial. It does not have to be gross. It can be completely enclosed in a building, It can have teaching gardens for our students. It can work in conjunction with our universities for education and engineering and agriculture. It can be a garden that is surrounding the facility such that when you go up to it, you think it's, I mean, if you look at this, do you think what is it? It's a garden center, maybe an equestrian center, not a waste facility. I just commissioned a waste study from EcoStrat. EcoStrat is the foremost company in the world. They're located in Toronto in analyzing feedstock. Feedstock is the available stock in your community. And what we did is put a pinpoint right where Rutherford County, Williamson County, and Davidson County meet. Isn't that where we get the majority of our waste from, these 3 counties that are currently going to the landfill here at Middle Point? And said 75 miles around there. That's what we're calling our supply basin. In that supply basin, they've broken it down into 4 major categories. It's totaling 655,000 tons of organics waste. And I'll tell you, there's a small composter in Cheatham County called Compost Company. On their 6th year last year, they were really excited to announce that they have composted 6,000 tons. And that's fabulous, but does that even put a dent in 852,000 tons of organics waste that's being produced within 75 miles? So there's 3 major ways that communities address the organics portion of their waste stream. The one that we're probably most familiar with is we landfill it. That's what's been most common in every community in the U.S. For decades. The step up from that is we learn how to compost it. Now, composting, like Steve was saying earlier, what they do, they used to do in East Tennessee, is we'll windrow it. We'll put it in big above-ground mounds. Is this working correctly? Is that above-ground mounds? And in those mounds, you'll aerate it. So when you aerate it, you do not create methane, which is great. You are able to get the breakdown of all of those organics and get compost at the end. 2 things that do happen, though. In our heat and our rainfall, you get leachate and you get smells. You get what we call vectors in the waste community. Vectors are smells, rats, germs, flies, birds, all of those things that are really difficult to manage for the public health portion of managing our waste stream. So you get vectors with our major water, like our rain issues and our heat. You also get a really challenging scenario to bring a public into. It's really hard to say we're excited about this when you're managing leachate on the ground and having to have a lagoon that can sometimes go stagnant and become harmful to our streams. In a digester facility, the digester, you go into that building, like the rendering that I showed you. So you'll go inside that building. The waste is disposed of inside, like a hopper that goes directly into a digester. The digester looks like a torpedo or a tube. It is fully enclosed, and when it goes inside, it is totally captured. You do not see it, you do not smell it. It is churning, and for 21 days, it goes from one end to the other, and on the other end, it comes out as 3 things: liquid, solid, and gas. So the liquid is liquid compost. You may have heard of compost tea that a lot of gardeners, farmers, parks and recreation, golf courses use. Compost tea, very easy to apply, highest nutrient-rich kind of compost that is available on the market. Solid compost, which we all know. And gas. The gas is methane. Methane can be converted to renewable natural gas, scrubbed to pipeline grade, and injected into the pipeline as an open commodity on the market. We sell it to support the finances of the project. Only in a digester can you produce methane, which is mimicking effectively a landfill. It's anaerobic, and get the finances back to support mass processing for organics. All right, so a dry anaerobic digester. There's wet digesters, and you might be familiar with those from wastewater treatment plants. Wet digesters are great. They're higher wet portion than dry portion. On the very end and the backside, they typically produce pellets. Those pellets are only heated to like a mesophilic level, so that's about 110 degrees maybe. They're not totally free of pathogens. You cannot, because it's biosolids, land apply them, so you can't necessarily use that as fertilizer. They end up being landfilled. So we still have a waste product on the other side that we're dealing with. In a dry digester, especially if you're just using organics, the exciting thing is everything, 100%, that goes inside that digester comes back out as something renewable for your community. There is such significant demand for compost that I've had baggers from all over the country that supply Dollar General, Home Depot, Lowe's, Tractor Supply with compost constantly contact me asking when we could be online so that they can buy the compost. It's in high demand. Your outputs have to be managed. That's one of the biggest parts of a project like this. When you see it around the world, are you managing your inputs and are you managing your outputs? And is there demand for those? A dry digester processes all the waste in 21 days. It takes 1 acre. That one building that you saw is on, is on 1 acre, and that 1 acre has an initial 25,000 ton per year digester and can go up to 100,000 tons. So a little more than 1/9 of what the amount of organics waste that we're actually disposing of right now it could process. So 1 acre, 100,000 tons. Now you need ingress and egress around that acre, obviously. You need trucks to be able to turn around, you need weigh scales, and honestly, we want it to look nice, so you want gardens around that and you want a teaching center. But 1 acre, 100,000 tons. On a scale of 1 to 10, and this is the way the BioCycle folks, the American Gas Association and the Composting Council, the International Composting Council, rate the smell of facilities from 1 to 10. The best we've ever gotten an open-air compost facility, even aerated static piles, you saw some of those from the trip, the best we've ever gotten one is a 3. 3 out of 10, 1 being the best. Usually it's about a 5. In a dry digester facility, it is a 1 at most. So you're really able to capture the smells, so you're respecting the community. You capture the smells, you then capture you no longer have a fly problem, you no longer have a bird problem because it's not sitting out, and you no longer have any of the leachate. All of that leachate, all that water gets recirculated and then made into compost tea. So here's just a really quick look at what the digester itself looks like. The waste goes in, it's pushed through, where you see the red. It's being pushed through from one end to the other and constantly churning. That churning is allowing that methane to be kind of exacerbated, and we make as much methane as possible from that food waste and that organics waste that is inside. As it's pushed through from one end to the other, it's breaking down, and it looks like compost when it's done. It's a little bit moist still, so we finish it out. It's sold, and it's off property in another week. So the not-for-profit I started almost 5 years ago has a really, really clear mission, and it is a not-for-profit. The vision is to create useful products in a responsible processing manner in our community. We can create 100% diversion. We can create a 100% reuse of these products back into our community. The mission is to provide it in a very safe and clean manner. It can be financially sustainable. It does not need to continue to cost a county or a city money. When you have the opportunity to sell renewable natural gas, that sustains the project financially. When you have a facility that is not manual, but it's completely self-operating, you do not have safety issues. When you have a facility that doesn't have the germs and everything exposed, you are observing public health issues that otherwise can be very dangerous. It's safe, it's clean, and financially sustainable. So the key components, when we look at projects that have been successful around the world, and I'll tell you, I've seen literally hundreds at this point, and I've worked at 11 different facilities throughout Europe, and you work with the facility manager, and you ask them what works for you, what doesn't work for you. It's funny that the common thing that doesn't work for them is avocado pits. And I've heard swearing in every single language in Europe about freaking avocado pits. They jam up the machine. And they, you let them sit there for a second, then they'll smush up. But they don't like avocado pits. But everyone will say, every facility manager will say, if we're not educating on the front end, how do you expect to get clean feedstock? If we're not teaching the children, how is this supposed to work? It makes their job harder. I mean, how many times have we been in our work and we're like, wait a second, there's a better way to do this? So we educate, and we know the bookends of this, the education and the public relations. If we're not doing that right, it's not working for our community, and all this other effort that we're putting into it is for naught. So we educate. We know we need to educate in the schools, we need to educate at our stadiums, at our grocery stores, at our farmers markets, at any of our public gatherings. Feedstock sourcing and supply. That is the job of the operator there. We source it. Let's say, for example, Mars Corporation. They have, in Lebanon, Tennessee, they send 1,100 tons of organics waste from their pet food manufacturing facility to Huntsville to a waste-to-energy facility because they are a zero-waste company. They don't want to landfill it, but they want to do something responsible with it. They would rather send it to a digester facility because they know those are actually nutrients that are going back into the community, to the farms. You create a contract with them, and you have 1,100 tons of waste that they're willing to pay up to $100 a ton to dispose of. That's 3 times what you would pay to put it in a landfill in order to responsibly process that into something for their community. We create those contracts with those responsible companies, and they help lead the way for a facility like this to take place in a community. Feedstock transport. I think we've all seen a garbage truck, old school, going down the street. It leaks a little. Goes into the stormwater system, creates a lot of damage to our streams. These types of trucks that would pick up organics waste are completely sealed. They're respectful to the community. You're not smelling something on a 100-degree, August day going by, your home. You're not smelling anything that is offensive, and it's clean and good for our community. Processing is the responsibility of the processor. It would all be done on site, and it's the kind of place that we should be able to welcome the community into. They can see it and they can be proud of it. When they're proud of it, they participate in the solution. You invite school kids in and it's the coolest field trip that they've ever been to. They get excited about telling their family, and they get excited about why they should be composting. Outputs. We talked a little earlier about the compost that comes out, the methane that comes out. We've got to have a place to put those. The renewable natural gas is sold on the open market. It's sold in a portfolio, like you would think of a stock portfolio. You want some long-term and short-term kind of plays. And that's the way a bank is going to like it the most. They like to look at $10 per MMBTU for, we'll say that's an 18-year or an 8-year contract, but we have a 3-year contract at $22 per MMBTU. And we're just diversifying that portfolio such that the bank is happy because they understand that we're managing the monies properly, but at the same time, we're able to very safely manage the finances of this business, supporting its ability to service debt on that approximate 2/3 of what the CapEx would be. Public relations, this is Keith Miles, an MP&F type of thing. We got to tell the community what we're doing. When you work with elementary school and you go in and you show them like what we're going to divert, and we put our banana peels in this bin, and then you come back the next month and you show them how much they achieved, what do you think kids do? They pat themselves on the back. They get excited about what they did. That took 42 cars off the road. That's the equivalent of 42 cars not emitting any fumes into the atmosphere. That's what you kids accomplished. You do the same thing for the community. You do the same thing at a stadium. You do it at a farmer's market, at a grocery store. That's what makes the community want to participate. And we've learned this from other models around the country, but more around the world. If you go to Switzerland, you go to Austria, you go to Italy, especially Germany, they've got it down. And they let their community know what a great job they're doing. I'm all about the stick sometimes, but really the carrot does work. And if we start with that, we can really get the community behind us. And that's how you start the excitement. You also start with the large companies coming in and being part of it from the beginning. And that supports the ability for a community to have an organics recycling facility. So it doesn't always have to be a burden of the facility to build, and as much of a financial burden. It can be something that we use all the different relationships that we have in the community and goals that the other community members have to collectively work towards the same solution. So the idea of this project from the beginning, because we know that education is a huge part of the solution, and on the other side, the public relations is a huge part of getting participation, is that this is a public-private partnership. It doesn't work if the public is not in partnership with the private entity doing the processing, sourcing the feedstock. So from the get-go, this works, and this is mission-driven when the public and the private are on the same page with what the goals are. And if the goals are to get the community excited about participating in organics diversion because they start to understand from the education why it's important, if they start separating out their banana peels from the trash, then we have the public and the private working together on the solution. The facility, like I was talking about before, is modular. So that facility can start out smaller. It can start out at 25,000 tons a year. And then we expand it such that when there's demand, we expand. But we're never overcommitting from the get-go. We know that we can handle 25,000 tons a year because through an 18-month build, we get commitments for that much. We ramp it up, and at which point that there's more demand, it takes a few months to get another digester on board because the guts are already there to plug into. So in the few years that I've been working on this, we have a number of community partners. And as you can imagine, you have some real community leaders here. Bank of America, HCA just wrote checks. They just wrote big checks and said, go figure this out. HCA did a waste audit in their hospitals, and we identified about 20% of what they could reduce from the front end, which is the real goal, right? We don't want to have waste if we don't need to. They identified better practices to employ. And then they said, let's figure out what to do because there will always be waste. Bank of America saying we want to be leaders in sustainability in our community. Just said, go figure this out. We need to do something, and we'd like to see something done in the Southeast. We expect San Francisco to do it. We would like to see someone step up and be a leader in the Southeast. I have a little over $1 million in grant money from TDEC. TDEC has materials management and sustainable practices departments that have been working on this for over 5 years, trying to get someone to step forward and do this, knowing that it is not the job of government, but it's also the job of government to incentivize. Bridgestone Arena is trying to be a zero waste arena. They cannot do it right now because there's not infrastructure to plug into. You have different family foundations who have identified this as something they feel as a family should be one of the most important things that we work on in Middle Tennessee right now. What are we doing? Working towards a huge landfill that is actually going to be closing sometime in the next decade. They don't want to see that. They're looking ahead to their next generation. We also work with our partners in the community. So think about Urban Green Lab. It's an environmental education partner. They go out and work with children and public school teachers on how to integrate the ideas of waste management into the classroom. So from kindergarten, kids are learning, oh, put the banana peel in this bin. If you do a 3-bin system from the get-go, kids know from the beginning they do it at home and it works. And they help the teachers. We don't pay for it. That's a non-for-profit that's already figured it out. As a community, we leverage their knowledge and their interest in educating to go ahead and help our public school teachers integrate into the curriculum that's already what they know. The Cumberland River Compact does river talks. They go all around the state and give river talks on why. So people that are interested in going to their talks, and they bring in really famous speakers, so they kind of have a good draw. And then the Environmental Council and very, very much foremost, the Bovender family and the Bovender Foundation have been behind this from behind the scenes. And I don't think Jack likes me to tell people that a whole lot, but he's kind of one of my biggest cheerleaders and said, we got to go figure this out. This is our responsibility as a community. So I've spent the last 7 years doing that. This is a very, very abbreviated presentation because I want to be respectful of your time. But I will tell you the full process is available at resourcecapture.com. You can just go and look and delve into much deeper information. But the crux of it is organics waste processing can be safe. It can be clean, and we can process massive amounts on a very, very small footprint in a manner that is financially sustainable. It's completely possible.
Thank you, Sammy. Any questions for Ms. Prasad? Seeing none, I think you'll agree that, I'm sorry?
Yep, it's good.
Yeah. I think everybody's good with that. Very good presentation. Thank you so much for giving your time and coming and sharing that with us. I think you'll see that her knowledge is very valuable, and her willingness to help our community be a zero waste community. because nobody else is prepared to step up the way that we are. We're right on the cutting edge. Every other county is still kicking the can down the road like we've done for the last 29 years. So thank you, SEMA, for coming. Next, we have a very short presentation. Dan?
Yes.
Dan, if you don't mind, please come up. And Dan Jernigan.
Dan Jameson?
Jameson, I'm sorry. Yeah. Exactly. Dan was our host, and he's with Republic. He's Executive Vice President out of Chicago or Phoenix, out of Phoenix. Executive Vice President for Republic, and he was our main host in California. So he's got a short presentation, and Mike is yours.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate the tour to give you some education and examples of what we do, capabilities that are out there. We do this on large scale, so we do this everywhere across the country, so in 42 states. And it's really one of the things that we see is a benefit of forums like this is the need for education and buy-in from the public. We think going through this process is very, very helpful for the public, and we think community input and determining exactly what you want to do as a community and where you want to go and what policies you want to set are the key to making this successful as we move forward. So we have the capabilities, and we certainly want to be part of the solution, and we certainly think that getting through this education phase is important for everybody and making sure that everybody's on the same page moving forward. So this is a little bit of what the group got to see on the tour. They didn't get to see the Vegas part. Like I said, it is the largest recycling center that's in the United States right now, and probably the most advanced that's out there. And it's constantly already being upgraded, so we're already changing out lines and adding some lines at that Vegas facility. As well as you'll see a little bit of thing is kind of a unique program. It's kind of the same struggle I think that the city of Nashville has had with the restaurant community. We had that struggle and meeting with the casinos in Las Vegas to say, what's a better way to process all these organics that are out there, because if you've been out and gambled and you've seen the buffets, I don't think everybody eats everything every day, so there's a lot of that comes out. And so we kind of came up with an innovative solution, working with the chamber and working with the community as well as with the casinos. So it took a while to get everybody bought in. Surprisingly, Las Vegas, when we started the process, and I think that's important to know, none of this stuff happens overnight. Las Vegas didn't have any curbside recycling. We had to fight pretty hard to get curbside recycling in Las Vegas. They had twice a week solid waste collection and once a month recycling when we started, and that's totally now reversed. So you'll see a little bit of that on here, and certainly willing to answer any questions.
All across America, thriving communities like Rutherford County are working to become more environmentally responsible while meeting current and future solid waste disposal needs. There are several viable approaches to improve diversion and sustainability, all at acceptable costs for taxpayers. But whatever customized approach a community may take, the communities that adopt a longer-term view of their solid waste and diversion investments typically enjoy the greatest economic and environmental benefits. Republic Services, an industry leader in U.S. recycling and non-hazardous solid waste, brings solutions each day to more than 3,000 communities nationwide. Republic was named among the most innovative companies by Forbes, one of the 100 most sustainable companies by Barron's, and Republic was included among the world's most ethical companies by Ethisphere. These accolades are a source of pride for our 35,000 employees. They're also the result of a relentless pursuit of excellence as we work to become America's preferred recycling and solid waste provider. California's Bay Area is widely considered a global leader when it comes to environmental responsibility. Republic's Newbie Island Resource Recovery Park is enabling Bay Area communities to achieve their bold sustainability goals. Each day, Newbie Island handles 1,600 tons of recyclables, 700 tons of compost, 77 tons of recovered construction and demolition material, 4,000 tons of municipal solid waste. Newbie Island's single-stream recycling center is capable of sorting wet and dry mixed material. The facility diverts roughly 80% of commercial and 95% of residential recoverable material. Newbie Island's composting facility features an innovative system which involves using forced air rather than continually turning the organic material. This system optimizes pile conditions and odor controls. Newbie Island's construction and demolition recovery facility diverts roughly 90% of this material from the landfill. This includes drywall, untreated wood, roofing materials, metals, and various aggregates and concrete. Even with these sophisticated large-scale diversion programs, an environmentally conscientious community like the Bay Area will still generate waste. That's where a modern landfill like Newbie Island comes into play, helping the community stay ahead of an evolving waste stream and responsibly handling materials that cannot be repurposed. But what might be the most impressive about Newbie Island is the fact that its entire fleet, 65 collection vehicles, are powered by clean, renewable natural gas. In booming southern Nevada, Republic recently built the largest and smartest residential recycling center in North America. The award-winning Southern Nevada Recycling Center is home to highly advanced recycling technologies and an interactive learning center. The facility serves more than 575,000 households. It's capable of processing one fully loaded truck in just 3 minutes, and it recovers enough aluminum to build a new 747 airplane every 7 weeks. Located just 18 miles north of the recycling center, Republic operates Apex Landfill, a modern site with a landfill gas-to-energy facility, mining operation, and hog farm, which offers a food waste solution for Las Vegas hotels and casinos. Apex generates enough renewable energy from its landfill gas-to-energy facility to power 11,000 homes. The site partners with a local mining company to remove 1.4 million tons of sand and gravel for reuse. Apex has also optimized a food waste solution for Las Vegas hotels and casinos. More than 25 tons of food waste per day is diverted from the Las Vegas Strip and converted into feedstock for hogs at Apex Landfill, creating a sustainable circular economy. The future is bright in Middle Tennessee. As your partner, Republic is ready to work with you to create smart and sustainable solutions for generations to come.
Their videos are a lot better than one I gave you. Well, yeah, I didn't ask a while ago if there's any questions or anything. I'll try to answer them, or I'll leave it up to the professionals to answer them. So, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman.
In your opening comments, you said you're in 42 states. Why only 42?
You would come to the mic, though. Yeah.
Certain places that we just have not done business, so we're not in places usually where there's not a lot of people. So there's parts of the country, primarily up in the Northeast, where we don't have operations. So we're not in places like Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine. We're not in, we are now in North Dakota. We're not in South Dakota. We're not in Wyoming, but most of the other states. We're not in Hawaii, and we're not in Alaska.
How long have y'all been into the composting business?
I think it's probably depends on the marketplace. In some places we've been in it for probably 5 to 10 years, depending on what. Most of the stuff that is policy driven, in getting somebody to put their organics out separately, et cetera. It's a policy decision that comes with a city or state ordinance or legislative mandate, and so that's kind of what directs a lot of that activity.
So it's still relatively new for y'all?
Relatively new, but as you can see, we're doing it on pretty large scale. You saw that we're taking in, just at that one facility, 700 tons a day. So it's, and you learn every day. You learn something new. Is through this entire planning process, one of the things that we think you need to keep in mind is that new technologies is going to evolve, that this isn't an end game for whatever decisions the county comes up with. It has to be constantly evolving and changing. So I don't think you ever have to feel like you're making a mistake because, as I told Recycle Rutherford last night, hopefully, in our lifetime, somebody invents a spray and it makes all the garbage go away. It would be nice, and somebody will figure it out at some point in our lifetime. But it's a ever-changing marketplace, and we call it kind of the evolving ton. So what was in the waste stream 10 years ago is not in the waste stream today. What's going to be in the waste stream in the next 10 years is going to change. And so it changes the way you have to deal with it and the way you have to manage it.
Thank you.
Mr. Jameson, the recycling part in Vegas, right, which you guys did not get to see. So we saw okay, so you did see a totally recycling part. Okay. Was that part of your facility?
Yes.
Okay. So that's coming in from trucks that have the dual or single source?
Most of the stuff in California is single source.
Okay.
So it's one container with all the recyclables in it.
Okay. So how much of that is contaminated?
In today's marketplace, we're running some markets 6%, and we're running other markets 50%. And it depends on how educated you are, that the education that starts out when, and it depends on just a lot of different factors that we're finding out as to what causes the contamination. One of the big things is there's a lot of wish recycling. I wish I could recycle this, and you can't. And so that's become the biggest problem across the United States, is that people want to do the right thing. People like to recycle, but a lot of times they'll put stuff in there that you put something in can contaminate a whole load. You put in a container of orange juice and you haven't cleaned it out, and that leaks out into the rest of the material. That ruins kind of that load of cardboard and everything else.
So when it gets to your facility and you, for round numbers, if 50% of it is contaminated, you have to set aside that 50%, and you have to then bundle and truck that to another facility to process that?
Well, surprisingly, one of the facilities that you saw, the first one, we process a lot of stuff at Newbie Island, and some of the material that's coming that we're reprocessing a couple of times goes to the digester that you saw at the South Central. So it all depends on how much, and every time you touch the waste stream, it costs more money.
Sure.
And so it just depends on what people want to pay and what the mandates are out there and how you deal with it. But a lot of times today, if you've been reading the paper about this China sword thing, that China shut off the recyclables, there's a lot of communities that have stopped recycling, or that they're throwing their recyclables in the landfill. We're a big enough company to where we have found markets for our material, and where we probably had a 2-month lag of material sitting around, we find markets for our material and we find buyers. The challenge, I think, for this next generation is, how do we find markets within the United States to where we can use our materials and reuse that material in the United States?
So if for the snapshot that this whole audience saw tonight, is the few pieces of the puzzle in the perfect world then to have recycling up front and pull what the marketable in today's world, the marketable recyclables out, and sell that off. What you can't recycle, you put in the digesters along with your household waste. Let me, I spoke too soon. You recycle, you would take your organics, SEMA,
Right.
take your organics out, then your regular household waste, your contaminated recyclables, go through the digester, and you create a mulch product.
One of the organics to use for the mulch product.
You have to have some organics.
Right, you have to have the organics product. So we would recommend, and I think when we were out there, we had the discussion with our manager right off the spot and said, you know, if you had the best world, what would you do? A 3-container system where you have your municipal solid waste, you have your organics container, and you have a recyclable container. And that way, they're going through separate process. So you're going to take that organics, and that's what you're really going to make into the recyclables. The other element that's left out of that, where you saw at what we do at Newbie Island, is the C&D waste. There's a lot of C&D waste here in the county that needs to be recycled, and there's opportunities to do that, and that's what we do out there as well. I mean, we not only sell the mulch, and we sell most of that mulch you see is of a grade that goes to Scott's. So when you're buying from Scott's at Lowe's, or that's coming from our compost area. But we also do what you see, you know, you're putting stuff down in your yard for the mulch and stuff like that, and wood chips and things like that. At that location, we have a complete, you know, wood chip place where we spray it different colors, and it's sold off as well. So, and that's all through the C&D recycling.
The mulch product that we saw in Sevierville, you weren't privy to that, but I don't know if you even know what that looks like, but I really don't know who the end user of that is, and that's what my concern is who really is the end users of that, who would be buying that product from us, and what are the real uses for that. The folks in Sevierville tried to say that, you know, you could use it for some backfill material, and I find that hard to believe. As a guy in the construction industry, I find that a hard pill to swallow. But is there really enough end users for that mulching material to take that product?
It depends on the quality of the product and what's in it. So, you know, something like that where we've kind of, as this come up, we've talked to TDEC as to where that product goes and stuff. And, you know, there's another composter here in the county that we have went and visited their operations. They have a digester. They're taking sludge material and stuff. We wanted to use some of that stuff for cover, but there's too many metals in it, and so we can't use it, you know, so we get tested every day. So you got to have the right market, you got to have the right materials. You know, we think the real secret sauce is the pre-processing. As you've got to pre-process that material. I think in Sevierville, everything goes in, and recyclables that come out, you know, they'll try to garner the metal. We don't see how they can create a value there, and how you get some of that material that's in there, how do you get it out of that organics where it's, you know, being used? You don't want it in somebody's playground where, you know, you got a shard of glass or something else in there. So it's all in the pre-processing, and so we don't take and do the organics without processing it first.
I'm not going to ask any more questions, although I have a bag full of them. But I kind of envision this as the first of many kind of public type meetings to which members of the general public can come and chat and talk, and you guys can present, and other technologies can present. So I'm going to save my questions as I get more educated, and we have more time to devote. But I appreciate you guys being here and educating us.
We totally agree. We think there needs to be a series of community forums around the county to get everybody's buy-in to say, what do we really want to be when we grow up?
Mr. Chairman, one of the things that we wanted to do is give you a full report on what we saw out there in California. And so I didn't mention one of the other locations that we went to here in Manchester, McMinnville, Waste Away. The mayor, the solid waste director, and myself went up before this trip and took a look at it one day. And again, it's the end product is an issue. I mean, it's a great job what they do, but what can you do with it? So they're having some issues there as well as what to do with the end product. It's clean when they get done with it, and it's fluffy, or they can pelletize it, and we understand that they can incinerate it for energy, but they're not having too good of a time with that.
Yeah.
So,
and I may add, I'm going to suggest, and wherever Mac Nolan is sitting, last year our SWAC group made 2 trips that I can recall. One was to the Lebanon facility that was a waste-to-energy plant. Mac, help me out.
that was a plasma.
Yeah. Right, gasification. And then we also took a big bus of us, probably 20 of us, to Huntsville to that waste-to-energy facility. And that was really cool. But as I recall, in today's dollars for our need, that would be almost a $500 million. A $1 billion expenditure. And then the other part of that is the byproduct, would be electricity. You could make energy from that. But they were sitting in a gold mine because they have Redstone Arsenal right there next to them. So they were just taking all that electricity and had the infrastructure already in place to do that. So a huge investment. And then you had to have a superpower to take all that electricity. It would be cool to have a waste to energy solution here, but if electricity is your byproduct, we're sitting in TVA country. You can't sell it back to the grid because
right.
practically have to give it away for what TVA is going to buy it back from you. And then you've got our Middle Tennessee Electric friends, the same boat. They're not going to pay you any money for it because it's so dadgum cheap here in TVA world. And then you have to have a big buyer or you'd have to have a giant facility to take that kind of demand that we'd have to have. So waste to energy is cool, but man, that's when the zeros start coming in on the price tag on that kind of deal. So, but getting to where my original thought was, we may want to, if we're going to do a report, to talk about the technologies that we visited, even though it was last year, we might want to kind of talk about the advantages and disadvantages of what we saw in Huntsville. Oh, Rhonda. Hi, Rhonda. And what we saw in Lebanon, too.
Well, I think that's the purpose of going to all these. When the mayor started his bus ride to Sevierville, that we get an overlook at everything that's out there and what is best suited or what's the best piece of the puzzle for Rutherford County. And that's what we're trying to do, is get to there. But everything we want to surface, the good, the bad, the ugly, what works, what doesn't work, so the commissioners can make a solid decision and be the right decision for this county for the future, for way on down the road. Yeah.
My question is a follow-up to exactly what Mike was just saying. The types of things that you've shown us, are they scalable for Rutherford County to make them practical for us? And are you talking about only taking care of Rutherford County, or would you want to continue to service a region, which is what I'm thinking you would need to make it worthwhile? So I'm just kind of curious. I'm sure you guys have kind of thought where you'd like to take it, and that's some of what I'm wanting to hear.
Everything that we've done is scalable, obviously, and that's the big issue you have when you have it comes every day. It doesn't stop. So the waste streams don't stop. So you got to remind yourself of that it's 40 tons doesn't do it. There's 4,000 tons that come in usually. And you saw, we were doing 700 tons of organics just by itself up in the San Jose market. So we found technologies and have worked into things that are scalable, that work. The overall scope, that depends on, I think, on you and the region. I think that there is opportunity. One of the things that we've talked about is if there is a solution, and you go back to Nashville or Davidson County and say, you know, if there's going to be a processing and recycling facility that could take your waste, you're going to have to pay a royalty back to Rutherford County. And you make it an income stream that not only supports the efforts here, but also supports the infrastructure over time, so that you're not, you know, going out and issuing bonds all the time and hitting the taxpayer. There's other ways through host agreements that, you know, you go to some of these other counties and say, there may be a better way to fix this, working together instead of working apart. The solid waste problem, and I said this to Recycle Rutherford last night, is not Rutherford's county, it's the state of Tennessee. Once Middle Point closes, there's about 8 to 10 years of landfill life around the entire state. So everybody's going to be running into the same wall real quick.
Well, and I guess that was one of my next questions was if we figure out a solution similar to kind of what y'all have been talking about here, is it something that could be done on the current footprint you currently have at Middle Point, or would there need to be additional land devoted to something like this?
I think we've looked at it. I think most of it will fit on most of the footprint that's out there.
And have you ever been involved, and maybe you don't, maybe you only need the trash to get to you, but have you ever been involved in a county-wide collection system like we would need to adopt for this to work for the county?
Yeah,
Because you know, we have such a rural area, that's not something that's not the norm for us.
Right, and there's a lot of them around there that we do. Yeah, there's a lot of places that require it around the country where it's countywide, and it becomes especially if you don't make it countywide, then what happens is you find bags in the ditches everywhere, and so you really have to kind of mandate that so that everybody's engaged, and that, you know, even I was talking to somebody last night about pay-as-you-throw, and this pay-as-you-throw work, and it's in its 8 to 10 year reiteration in the Northeast. It was a big thing in the Northeast. And what was the biggest problem? The neighbor sneaking over in the middle of the night and hitting his buddy, and, you know, then we have to put cameras on the truck, and then you got disputes between neighbors and everything else. Kind of got solved by saying, okay, you really don't put out that much waste. Instead of having a 96-gallon container, you only need a 35, and you may need a 64 because you got 5 kids in the house and everything else. But you have to have everybody bought in. I think if you let everybody in the county not participate, you run into places where, you know, you got beautiful areas here of the county where people start dumping, and it's got to be something that gets people engaged in that process. Especially, you're going to get those things out of the waste stream. You know, you want to get more out of the waste stream, and if it's going 100 different places, it really doesn't work.
Made the comment there was 8 to 10 years left of landfill life in Tennessee.
Yeah, after a Middle Point closed.
Closes.
Yeah.
So 8 to 10 years from today, y'all will not have a landfill in the state of Tennessee?
We've got a couple other landfills. We have some big ones over in the Memphis market, and we have some probably 100 to 150 miles away. We do have other landfills.
Will be life, it's just be further away, correct?
Further away, but as everything keeps growing out, those things are starting to fill up as well, and that's kind of the analysis that a third party has done.
Thank you.
I was waiting on some of the others to get finished. This question is a little out of context, but it's a result of somewhat in my mind a question I had, and most of it it comes from phone calls and emails that I can't answer the question. So I want you to help me answer the question. And before we leave here tonight,
Not be that smart, but
well, before we leave here tonight, Mr. Mayor, I would like to present a question or two to you as well, because I don't know how to answer these questions that I'm practically daily getting. So if I understand correctly, you've been in this composting, recycling, whatever it is, out west for at least 5 years or longer? Is it 6, or is it 5, or is it 8?
Like I said, it depends on the municipality. There's been some places that have mandated organics some time ago. Some places just started it. By 2025, out of the commercial waste stream in California, all organics have to be out. So every restaurant, everything else by 2025. So a lot of that activity has been policy driven.
Okay, so Republic has been in the business, we can say, at least 5 years in doing things that way. So the question that I have had, and the question that just in the last, well, since we took the bus trip to Sevierville, that's when all kinds of people started calling, and I'm sure other commissioners, I don't know if other commissioners get these emails or not, or I'm just being picked on. My question is this: if you were in this business for the last 5 to 7 years, it seems like it took Rutherford County looking elsewhere for Republic, who's been in this community for a long, long time. It took us taking that trip to get you guys. The appearance is, we better do something different, because they're stepping out because they're wanting to go a different direction. I would think that someone you've been around for a long time in Rutherford County, that if there was a new way of doing something, I mean, you guys knew as well as anybody, maybe the state and you guys knew when that landfill would probably close, how much time was left on it. I'm just curious why Republic did not approach Rutherford County first 3 or 4 years ago.
Well, a lot of times we can say, I can't go to a shareholder and go, if we can build it and they will come. If we don't have any material, for me to go out and spend $40 million on an operation and we have no revenue against it, doesn't make a lot of business sense. Number one. Number two, we've been trying to push. We put proposals in front of the city of Murfreesboro more than several times for curbside recycling, and a lot of this starts with curbside recycling, and we've got nowhere. We proposed to build a recycling center, and we got no bites. We want to mandate recycling. You got to have the material to make the things work financially. You can't have a pipe dream, and you can't have a policy where 2 truckloads are coming in a day, and I've built a $40 million facility, and how am I going to get it?
Well, I think I may not have presented the question correctly, or there's...
Oh, I understand. We got the question. We got the question last night as to why do you do? We don't dictate the service levels to a community. I can't go and tell every resident here you got to compost. I don't have that authority.
I get that. I understand that, and I understand that you don't come in here and invest millions of dollars in a composting facility for Rutherford County without talking to Rutherford County. My point was, why not in the last 5, 6, 7 years has Rutherford County not been approached to at least have that discussion that, hey, here's what's coming. We need to talk about it. There's some things we're doing in California. There's some things we're doing in Nevada. If you're interested in it. I wasn't talking about you just putting all kinds of money in a facility and then seeing if we would use it.
And that's mea culpa on the organization, our company. I was brought in You know, I'm out of Arizona, and some of it's, and I said last night, a lot of times we've had some management here where it's not been the right management. We just made a management change here because we weren't real happy with the direction that we've been going. And so sometimes that takes a wake-up call for a company that is the size of us. So that's fallen on our own sword, and you know, that's for us to live with, and I can't make any excuses or anything for people that have been here in the past. I'm just here to address your concerns now and going forward.
No idea how much I appreciate that answer. That's just a tell it the way it is, and here's the truth kind of answer, and I appreciate that. So I'm through. If somebody else has a question, but before we get finished, I have one or two from you, Mayor, unless you want to do that now. All right, so some of the other emails I'm getting, and again, other commissioners may be getting them. Sometimes I think I'm the only one getting them, and then I find out the entire commission got them. And you may have even gotten these. There is a perception that, and I think one of my emails actually said, why is the mayor seemingly so intent on partnering or doing business with Republic? And I've gotten that from probably, it's been multiple, 6, 7 people, either by email or phone calls, that it seems that we're spending a lot of time with Republic, and there's so many other companies out there. I mean, I Googled Republic's competitors, and they showed the top 5, the top 10. There's a lot of other companies out there. So that's one portion of the question, and another part that goes along with it is this something, and I think I know the answer, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but I'd rather you confirm that. Let's just say we've worked with Republic and we've got a plan with them. Hopefully, well, let me back up. Does this whole process have to go through bidding? I mean, are we going to kind of latch on to maybe 3 different companies, and all 3 of those look to be our best solutions, and we compare apples to apples, and we bid that out? Or does the commission just say, here's one we want to use? I don't understand the process enough to answer the questions that have been presented to me.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner, and let me address your first question. I'm not sure why the perception is there other than the invitation was extended by Republic. After we made our trip, that was my first action after being sworn in on September the 1st. I campaigned on it, on this issue of the landfill. It's been an issue that's been hanging around far too long. I think probably each one of you campaigned on it as well because of the complaints throughout our whole county, the smell, the garbage flying out of trucks, all of the issues that we've heard. They extended an invitation for us to attend. But my first, I guess, trip was what we organized and went to Sevierville. Republic had nothing to do with that. Second trip was Mr. Sandlin talked about with Mr. Nolan, the 3 of us. I said, I want to go see that wasteway. It's been some time. Back when I was on the commission, they actually started that facility up in McMinnville. Unfortunately, they haven't been successful because they have no place to take their end product, the fluff or the pelletized pellets, to burn in some type of facility to create waste energy. They built a facility in Aruba. I think a lot of the millionaires up in McMinnville all invested in Wasteway from the nursery business, but it hasn't really done what they thought it was going to do. The facility in Aruba they built down there on the island thinking that the Dutch government was going to come in and start funneling everything to them. That facility in Aruba has been vacant for probably 2.5 years with a huge investment, and they're stuck just taking care of Warren County's waste in a very small way. Waste Management does not, the second larger waste facility, doesn't have a facility in Rutherford County. So maybe some people say, oh, well, he's being bought and paid for by Republic, or the commissioners that are all going are being bought and paid for by Republic. We paid our own way. Each city paid their own way. They wrote the checks, sent it into Laura. We paid our own way only by the invitation. We wanted to see what they were doing on the West Coast from a recycling and composting process. Tried to get into Las Vegas, we couldn't. Some of you have, Chairman, visited the 2 gasification processes in Lebanon and in Huntsville. In my opinion, it costs too much. And as you said, you can't sell the waste energy back to the TVA grid. Why go to that expense? In my opinion, the gasification or even the plasma gasification process is not worth our time and energy. It's my recommendation to this commission tonight, to this committee, is that we look, no matter who we decide to partner with or whether we decide to do this independently without any other partner. That's our choice. But what I did do was pull our 5 cities together. In the last process with GB&B, I guess, was the company that the last commission wanted to do business with. We paid $250,000 tax dollars for a study, and you got a presentation and a brochure, and nothing has happened. Nothing. Nothing has happened with the money that was spent with that organization. I came in prepared to lead this county and to present all possibilities of how we handle the trash in this county. Gasification's out. It's my recommendation that we go with composting and recycling. Then we find a way, if we need to sit down and talk to M-Tissue, they have a pig farm. It's good. We might want to move that to a different location and make it larger. Take all the, as Seema was talking about, take all the food waste from the 3 hospitals we have. Take the food waste from all these restaurants. We got more restaurants popping up in this town than probably any other city in the state. Take all the food waste from all the schools that we're building. You know there's a lot of food waste coming in those schools. Those kids are picky eaters, and they don't eat everything going through. There's a great possibility, but it's going to take all of us combined. I think all the cities, Smyrna, Murfreesboro, Laverne, and even Eagleville, the new mayor, said, we don't have but 500 people, but we realize we have to do something with our waste. This may come down to another utility bill. Just like you pay your water, your lights, etc. All citizens are going to have to start paying for disposing of waste. Dumping and covering is not the direction for our future. It's not. We can't continue going down that road. If we can turn our trash into dirt, if we can feed our food waste to pigs and let them digest it, we get an end product out of that. We recycle, try to sell that. There are 503 companies that are doing recycling in the United States right now. They are buying recycling products. The problem is the cost of transportation of those recycling products. China's cut us off. Where do we go? But we can be smart about our direction. Whether it's partnering with some other company and we put it out to bid, that's our choice. If we decide to do like Seema was showing in her presentation with one building and we just add to it as we continue to grow our waste stream, we do it internally. but we have to do something. We can't keep arguing about it and just talking about it. We have to be bold. We have to think outside the box. How are we going to be the best in Tennessee and set the example of taking care of our waste stream? So for those who want to criticize me for working with Republic, they're a good company. They've been dumping and covering for a long period of time. Before them, it was Allied. Before them, it was BFI. If there's a possibility for Waste Manager or a possibility for Republic or any of those other companies that want to step up and work with Rutherford County and make Rutherford County the best, set the example of the gold standard of becoming a waste-free or a zero-waste county, then I welcome anybody to come to the table. If not, we go alone. But we'll have to find a way to pay for it. And I think just what Seema was talking about, there's ways to pay for this. We can do this, but we've got to be working together, not fighting against each other.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And I think what's happened, there's a trip that you said you and Mac and somebody went on. I don't recall anybody saying anything about that trip, and that doesn't mean somebody was supposed to. I'm saying that I missed it. So if folks out there in the community are missing the information or the trip that y'all took and what you're really doing, if they're missing that piece, then and they only hear about the Republic trips or whatever, that may be where the perception is coming from, because they're not being fed the other information.
It could be, and I'm telling you tonight that I don't think that Waste Away is worth another trip, because they have no place to sell their pellets to or their fluff. It's a clean operation, but they can't handle the waste stream that this county has. McMinnville is still very small. Outside of everything we've talked about, from gasification, plasma gasification, composting, recycling, taking care of our food waste stream, there's not too many other things out there. Those are about it. As far as globally, that's about it, right? There's nothing else. We're at the end of the line. Now we got to be bold. We got to take the first step and try and decide what we're going to do with our waste. It's going to be up to this commission to be bold enough and say, yes, this is it, no matter who it is. And we can't waste any more time doing it.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think when you and I first got elected, I remember us having a comment, and I've said this to so many others, we're a big county, and we have to act like it. And we can't make decisions for the next term or the next 10 years. It's got to be 50 years down the road. So I couldn't agree more. So you've helped in that portion of my question. Could you briefly explain, if we've got 2 or 3 options, are we bidding out? And if we do, are there enough companies to even have 3 bids that are apples to apples? That's another little caveat to it. So how does the process work to decide on how much money to spend, who we're going with? Is there that bid process? How does that work?
Well, I think it's up to this committee to make a recommendation to the full commission as to what direction we want to go. Do we want to do it kind of like our attorney? We want to do it in-house, or do we want to put it out to bid? Are there anybody interested in doing it? For those who want to come, then we let those organizations know that we're interested in partnering in a public-private partnership. If not, then I'd say we go in-house. And then we have to go to the bond market, and then we have to build the facility. but as Seema was saying, we can probably pay for itself just in collection and selling of the methane. These are all issues, but we're kind of at the end of the line of what direction we're going to go. I don't think we can learn much more than what we've done, and I've tried to lay as much as possible out there. But I am not in favor of spending another $250,000 on a report and we get nothing.
So ultimately, is this, Mr. Chairman, this will be the last time. If I understood you correctly, Public Works, I think you said.
Use your mic.
Public Works is going to be the group, or did you say the commission?
Well, I think this committee should make at least a recommendation to the
Okay.
full commission and say, this is the direction we recommend going. Just like I'm here making a recommendation to this committee that we do composting and recycling and take care of our waste stream, food waste stream in some other capacity. We just got to cut down the amount going into landfills because we don't want to continue dumping and covering.
I think one email I got, I kind of read between the lines a little bit. Maybe what I read was true or not, but it seemed to me that one person in particular actually was thinking that we are fixing to sign off with Republic to start something without the public's input, without bidding. And so I'm trying to get that clarified somewhat for me, but mostly for those who have those questions. And
Sure.
I appreciate your answers. And
Well, I hope everybody watches this tonight and the reruns because I'm trying to be as forthright and as transparent as possible. People just make stuff up just to create
Commissioner, let me
issues.
hop in.
Yeah.
First of all, the mayor does not have the authority to do that. This committee and the full commission is the only group that has the power to do that. All right, you're singling him out like he has got the power to do that. He does not. All right, it is the 21 of us that has that. We're the ones making the recommendation. He can certainly put his opinion in, but it's the 21 of us that's going to make that decision and going to decide on how we're going to pay for it and what it's going to cost and what direction we're going to go technology-wise. He's a player in it, but he is just a player. The 21 of us are making the hard decision, okay? That's enough.
I agree with that.
All right. Mr. Harris, did you have a comment?
Commissioner, thank you for letting me get in here. It's kind of hard to go after that, but let me, all I want to do is the economics part of it. The facility in San Jose, how many tons does that take a day?
All combined with the C&D and everything else, probably close to 6,700.
If we wanted to build a facility just like that with the compost, but we want to do it at 750 tons, how much money are we looking at?
Probably, with the recycling and everything else, we're probably looking about 40 to 50 million, depending on, yeah.
Thank you.
And one last to your comment, we know we're the villain in this, but we don't ever produce this waste. This is the waste of the citizens. We're not making the waste. We're here solving the problem. And county's had a pretty good deal over the year. You've been getting the free ride for over 30 years. We've put millions and millions back in the pockets of the taxpayers here, but we get made the villain. And so we think there needs to be a different villain.
Any more questions? Otherwise, we will convene back. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a question for Mr. Jameson? Okay. All right.
I think a lot of Mr. Rather's emails and questions about you may be siding with Republic is coming from the issue that we moved here last April about not merging with Republic or expanding their landfill. And I think before we, as a group, can make any forward progress, we need to know where you stand on that issue. Now,
On not doing business with Republic?
I'm referring to enlarging their footprint once they are at full capacity where they are now.
I'm totally against increasing the footprint. I was not part of that commission, but I'm against increasing the footprint.
I think that will clear up a lot of Mr. Rather's emails.
Well, that could be people who...
On your behalf.
Yeah, that could be people who didn't vote for me, spreading that stuff. So, it came down to me campaigning. I was asked that question several times, and I'm not in favor of increasing the footprint. I'm in favor of, if there's a possibility of going in and mining out what we dumped out there when I was on the commission back in the 90s and taking the cap off and turning that into dirt, I'm in favor of doing that. But we can't keep arguing about what are we going to do. We've got to take that bold step.
All on the same page.
I'm with you.
Telling me tonight.
I'm telling you tonight.
Not for the expansion.
No, sir.
Public land.
No, sir, not at all.
Proud to hear that, and I think a lot of people are.
And if we Mike, how many acres do we have out there? On our landfill. There's enough land for us to go out there and do what SEMA was talking about, if we choose to do that. Or we can go somewhere else. I don't want to buy more property. I'm about free property. I think you saw that in public safety the other night, or in public works. If I can find free property, that's where we're going. So if we need to build a facility like SEMA was talking about, that's where we go, But I'm not in favor of increasing just a dump and cover. I'm against that. Okay? But we have the wherewithal, we have the knowledge, we're smart enough to figure this out and lead this state and show, and there'll be a lot of grant money that will follow us. Every county, I promise you, every county is watching what we're doing because we're the only one on the edge of taking that next big bold step. Metro's watching us. That's where all their trash comes. 28 different counties is watching us because their trash comes here. They're wanting to see what we're going to do. So let's not shirk our responsibility. Let's step up and lead. Each one of you were elected to be leaders in this community for your constituents. Let's do it together. I promise you, we can make a difference.
Any more questions? Let's head back up to the top and finish up our meeting. All right.
Deal was last minute the podium bought supper.
Yeah, yeah, sure. We have to run that by full
Do we
commission
need to
first.
give y'all a few-minute break? Commissioner Dodd's walking off. I think I know where he's going. The rest of y'all need to do that too.
Anybody want to take 5 or 2?
How long you gonna be?
I brought my breakfast with me.
All right, 2 minutes. Thank you, Mac.
I'm gonna go look for that.
I want to thank everybody that spoke tonight. It was very informative and very much appreciative of your time and the information. It's good to be educated. In a very short while, this committee will be moving forward with some kind of a decision, but we certainly do have some due diligence and some studying to do first, both from an economic standpoint and then a landmass standpoint, what kind of footprint we really need to do and what kind of capacity we need for a variety of technologies. As Mayor Ketron said, and as we have seen, there is no one silver bullet that will answer our solutions or needs. So it will be a multiple technology, and we will address all those and find out what the best fit is, and more importantly, what's affordable for us. So, to answer the question of Mr. Rather, this committee will make a recommendation to go to full commission, so it will be all 21 that will make that ultimate decision. So. No, you did fine. All right, yeah, and that's all, that will all be coming down the pike soon. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming, Commissioner.
Walked out. Yeah. Well, yeah, I saw them walk out.
All right, we are all present. Mac, we have lost some of the audience.
Oh, they're no luck. They're going to miss out on all
But the
fun.
ones that really care have stayed for your report, so.
Let me start by addressing a few things. I was at the Recycle Rutherford meeting last night as well, and some of the citizens there were concerned about the decisions we have made. And for some reason, they have perception we've made all kinds of decisions. And I informed them, and I'd like to inform the entire county right now, there has been 2 decisions made. 2. This county commission made them in this very room several months ago. The first was not to allow Republic to expand onto our landfill and not to have a waste authority. So our 2 decisions thus far has been not to do. We have not made any decisions to do anything. So I just want to make that clear.
Okay.
All right, tonight before you, you have our normal landfill report. As you can see, the landfill has not been very busy. The weather conditions for the month of February, I think we had 4 times more rainy days than we had dry days. So we didn't have a whole lot of stuff coming in. And I have some budget amendments related to the landfill as well, but I think if it's okay with y'all, we'll go through the normal reports first. We are in the process of putting up the signage that y'all approved starting July 1st, 19, nothing for free. And also a sign's going to go up that says February of 18th when we stopped accepting the other debris other than brush and tires. So we're going to have those signs up. Tried to do them last week, but it kept raining us out pretty soon, so we're advertising that. Also, we'll have signage put into the 3 centers that accept tires that lets everybody know that as of July 1, those centers no longer accept those tires. Is there any questions on the landfill at this time?
On the brush issue, would rotting pallets qualify for brush at our landfill, or does it have to go next door?
Has to go next door. Our landfill to burn, our burn permit is for tree vegetation, pre-consumer waste, not post-consumer. So pallets and construction demolition debris, we can't burn any of that.
Okay.
They were mentioning in California that they grind up the C&D waste and make mulch out of it. I'm not confident you can do that here in Tennessee.
And make what out of it?
They make mulch out of the ground up C&D material in California.
They do in Nashville.
Do they?
Yeah, the
Okay.
mulch company does.
Okay. On our convenience center, recycling center side, we've been rather busy. But as Mr. Jamison was speaking a while ago about the volumes of trash and consistencies and way it would take to make things work, This past Monday, yesterday, we started the day with 104 loads to haul out of our centers. That's trash and recycle combined. 2 weeks earlier than that, we started out the day with 36, almost 3 times the amount than a 2-week period difference. So consistency is not us. You know, it just varies. Most of it's weather related. If you remember, last Saturday was a prettier day. So our centers have stayed busy, and our trash routes and recycle routes at the school are staying busy as well. Joey Smith and I meet with several different groups outside of here. One of which, last Thursday, we met with what they call, the TDEC puts together the top 5. And it's the top 5 counties and cities in the state of Tennessee. And a statement that they made that surprised me when they said it is the top 5 counties in Tennessee generate 77% of the trash generated in the state. That sounds like a terribly high number to me, but that was the statement that they made. But the reason they have the 5 of us meeting together is trying to figure out how we can pull together, work together, and do things more efficiently and better. And if they can get the top 5 counties doing it, then you've got most of the state already going that direction. So we're already a part of that. We're also a part of the greater Nashville region, trying to help make decisions what's going to happen in those 13 counties and 52 cities and some of those counties surrounding those. So a lot of these discussions that we're having here today is going to influence greatly what happens in a lot of the other parts of the state. Our recycle route that we've been talking about, we've kind of finally got a contract in place for that. I've got it in your packet so y'all can look at it. When we're at the budget meeting, one of the commissioners asked about a contract. So that's in place. We have not gotten any signed yet. I don't know if we need to get approval from the county commission for that contract. Do we? I'd like to have it, you know, just. For the it's a contract that we're going to start doing a dual stream recycling program. Dual stream meaning mixed paper and cardboard only. And the containers have been donated by a private company that is going to discontinue that service. And we will do that service for public properties, county and city properties, and private businesses. We will charge the private businesses $25 every time it's dumped, but there will be no charge for the public or for the government agencies. And in the contract will also state that the third time that container is contaminated, they will lose their service. We will get our container and go find us another customer. The reason we're going to charge for it is one, there's a need out there for that. We're trying to capture that material, and we think by charging the private businesses will make up the difference in the trucking cost and the commodity value, and hopefully break us even, if not just a little bit better. Did y'all, the contract is on your screen, isn't it, or is it?
It is.
Okay.
So would you like for us to make a motion to accept this and move it on to full commission?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right. Have you all found that on your pad? We discussed this last month at the meeting as well. It's it did not go to full commission.
The contract hasn't. The contract wasn't written. County Attorney's Office and I bounced it back and forth to get the wording correct and legal.
Now you're ready for it to go to the full commission?
Yes, for the contract.
I'll make the motion to move this agreement of the recycle pickup to the full commission for approval.
We have a motion. We need a second. Second. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries, and that will go before the full commission.
Okay, thank you. And I have some budget amendments you want
to... let's go ahead and approve Mac's report.
So moved.
Second.
Yeah, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay, Mac.
Okay. We have several budget amendments, one of which is not on here yet. They're still trying to get some final information, I think. But it's a $2,500 budget amendment out of the engineering line item at the landfill going into our travel line item. When we got postponed in California and had to change flights and change things around, we wound up spending more money on the hotel room in San Jose than we would have in Vegas. So that budget amendment is going to be coming through budget Thursday night, I guess, but I don't have a copy of that for you.
All right. Do you anticipate receiving any credit for any of those loss, airline or hotel, recoup any or all those?
Mr. Chairman, I had Laura working on trying to get us credit, even though that we had talked to some of the airline attendants in our hotel that were taking other flights there in San Jose. They told us that it was actually mechanical because many of you may have heard that Southwest grounded over 50 flights nationwide, and it was not mechanical from the actual plane itself. This was her comments, that it was some gentleman on FFA who favored another airline over Southwest and did this to them back in Thanksgiving to hurt Southwest. So it was the mechanical paperwork that was turned into the FFA, and they grounded those 50. I told Laura to use that, and the guy kept on saying, no, it's weather related. So we're not getting any credit there. We were able to get our credit back from our reservation in Las Vegas. So that has been sent back to us and will be redistributed to the cities that all sent money into us, but not on the hotel. And the hotel was so expensive in San Jose. And this was a DoubleTree. It was not a, 5-star. It was a nice DoubleTree, right. But it was just so expensive, and we were stuck.
Understood. All right.
I think we got a reduced rate when we first did that out there, but
we didn't even get a second cookie the next night.
no, those rooms that Thursday night was $331 a room. You want to do all these together? You want to take them independently, or?
They was how much?
$331 a night.
Have a Motel 6.
Are these in the same line item or the separate line items?
No, this is out of a separate line item.
They did have a Motel 8. And it was $256.
Okay. All right, we need to take these separately since they're different line items. So we're voting on the $25,000.
$2,500 from
budget amendment swap.
Engineering line item in the landfill going to the landfill travel line item. No, I don't have the paperwork.
Okay.
So let's make a motion to approve that.
I so moved to approve that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Sereno was the first, and I think Mr. Piercy was the second. Yeah, it will be roll call since are we really spending money or are we just transferring money? Guess it doesn't matter. Roll call.
It'll be spent.
Yeah.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather? Yes. Commissioner Cush?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for Commissioner Dodd for reminding me.
Okay, the next budget amendment is to move $14,000 out of the salary line item for truck drivers into the overtime line item for truck drivers. So its money is already there. We're just moving it from one line item to another. And then also in the same budget, we need to move $3,000 from the advertising line item into the communications line item, which that's our telephone systems. We also need to move $55,000 into the diesel fuel line item for our trucks and $5,000 for tires for our trucks. Both of those at $60,000 total is coming out of fund balance. And then we're going to a different budget. You want to? Oh, recycling is actually a separate budget. But we can do it, we can go ahead. if y'all want to. This one would be taking money out of the site development line item and moving it into contracts with private agencies, which is Dynamics, is who we deal with on our electronics, and that's for $10,000. If you would, go ahead and vote on those, because we need to talk about the next ones.
Do you have enough in your site development, this 5,000 that remains?
We had $15,000 in there, and that's our Haley Road facility, and we're not, yeah, we're not anticipating doing a whole lot more down there.
All right, any questions for Mac on that before we make a motion?
Our 55,000 on diesel fuel, how did we get that far off on fuel?
Fuel prices have gone up, but our budget line item has been going down for the past few years. Fuel prices had dropped. We were down at one point paying as little as $16,000 a month for diesel fuel. This last few months, we've been paying almost $26,000 a month for diesel fuel.
Motion to approve his budget amendments as requested.
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Chairman or Commissioner Sereno. All in favor? Oh, no, I'm sorry, roll call.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Serrano?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
At the property management meeting the other night, property management voted for us to go ahead and proceed with the Rockville Convenience Center. The store building itself would be donated to the Rockville Historical Society, but we would continue to build the centers as we discussed in the past. And the reason I want to bring this budget amendment forward to you is we have an active bid for the roll-off equipment that already has been purchased that's going to Leanna. That bid expires on April the 4th. We can purchase the equipment on that same bid at a much cheaper price than it will be if we wait till after the bid goes out and we have to rebid those commodities. So this budget amendment is related to that, but the mayor and I have discussed it, and what we think we want to do is we ordered almost $162,000 worth of roll-off equipment. $17,000 each is a trash compactor or a cardboard compactor. They're actually the same machine. We have some old machines that we've retired. We can have those rebuilt for roughly $10,000 a piece. They will wind up with rebuilt blades and cylinders and a whole new power unit installed on them and painted, and they'll look the same. So we can order everything except the new machines. The difference is when we ordered that total package, we had a 1.5% reduction in the price because we ordered everything. We won't get that 1.5% reduction in price this time, but we'll still save over $10,000. So the budget amendment is requesting $151,500 to come out of fund balance to fund the roll-off equipment for the Rockville Center.
Do the new machines have any warranty with them?
Yes, they'll have 2-year warranty.
Parts to build this will not
No.
be built?
The rebuilt cylinder will have a 90-day warranty, and the power plant will have a warranty as well, but the machine itself will not. Most of our experience on the machines is we don't have a problem with when they're in warranty. They run out of warranty before we have a problem with them.
All right. Further questions for Mac on the request to get under the calendar of April 1? If not, we need a motion and then a roll call, second and a roll call.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, roll call. It's getting late.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Serrano?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
One other thing that can help with this is the top 5 counties receive a recycle rebate, and it's roughly $2 million divided up based on population. Rutherford County and the city of Murfreesboro sharing $55,000 plus dollars. Murfreesboro's share this year was $24,000, and TDEC decided they wouldn't let them spend it on what they wanted to buy, so that we wound up with that back. So if these containers come in before the end of the year, that $24,000 can be spent for these containers as well. Next budget amendment is a landfill budget amendment. We're asking to move $13,000 into the equipment and machinery parts line item coming out of fund balance. This would be to buy the piping and materials to remove the 44 flares off the old county landfill and replace them with vents.
Apparently not. Apparently not.
What? Mm-hmm.
It's on here as 164,500 total. Did that not include the 13,000 you're talking about now?
It would, but we hadn't talked about that yet.
Approved it, but we didn't talk about it. Okay.
My budget's next. Y'all can approve it, and we won't talk about it, and we'll go home.
No, we want to hear why.
Oh, okay.
We want to hear why.
So both of those were approved in that one motion?
Unless you want to, I mean, you can talk some more about the 13,000, but
The flares were put on to the landfill after it was closed in the 94 or 95, and you can't buy the parts for them anymore. TDEC has determined that we can dismantle those flares and just vent that methane gas. The reason we didn't for a while is the flares are still intact. It's just been venting for a while. The reason we wanted to do that is if it created any odor, our neighbors next door would have been blamed for that. And it's not creating any odor, and it's not a whole lot of gas in there. The other thing that they're going to want us to do is when we start replacing those, take that old one off, and before we put the new vent on, is they're going to want our consultant team out there to actually measure how deep those wells are. There's nothing that we can find in any of the plans when they were actually installed originally to know how deep they are, and then where the screen where that gas can come in is. And the other thing they're going to do is test and see if there's any water in it. If there's water in it, we'll have to pump that water out, which will be leachate, and then send it to be treated.
How many vents did you have? 40?
44. Any other questions?
Have labor for this? I just see equipment and machinery. Do you have?
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah, we'll do that.
Motion to approve.
We don't approve.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Hey, I was uncomfortable with the way that went. That's why I jumped ahead. I would like to see this voted on, if it's possible,
Okay.
without disrupting your.
Sure.
That was a little clumsy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We have an approval, and we have a second. So let's go ahead.
1,000 specifically.
Roll call again.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
Thanks for letting me do that. It was a.
And I appreciate, I'd rather be that way too.
Clarification's good.
All right, y'all ready to go into the budget?
Oh, yeah.
Tonight, we're going to talk about 5 separate budgets. Solid waste is made up of 5 separate budgets. The first of which is the sanitation, education, and information budget. This budget has our litter crew drivers, the equipment for litter crew, and our education recycle coordinator in this budget. And it's actually a little reduced from last year. The one increase is in the travel line item. Our educational recycle coordinator is a member of the TRC board, Tennessee Recycling Coalition, and that requires some travel. So we increased it enough to cover for that travel that we experienced this year. And then there's one big reductions in motor vehicles. Last year's budget, or this budget, we bought 2 litter crew vans and 2 litter crew trailers, so we're not anticipating needing any more equipment in this budget. Now, you want to take the budgets one at a time?
Yeah, yes. Matt, question. I believe the big National Solid Waste Show is in Vegas this year? Did you get a?
I don't go to the national one. I'll go to the one for Tennessee, but I don't go to the national show.
The national one, okay. Any questions on the sanitation education budget? Because we will take these 5 separately. If not, I would need a motion and a second.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Sereno. And a second. All those in favor? Please say aye. Any opposed? All right, Matt, continue on.
And next, we'll go to our convenience center budget, and that's where the most of our employees are. The top several line items, all the way down to line item 212. I don't control. All those numbers are supplied to me by either risk management or HR or the finance department. So that's all your salaries and your benefits. To try to highlight some of the changes, 302 advertising, we're going to decrease that line item from $20,000 down to 10. We don't have a public media specialist right now, so we haven't been spending that money, so we'll make that reduction. Communications line item, we just did a budget amendment to increase that, so this budget reflects that increase. 321 engineering services, $35,000. That's intended to be for the Rockville when we start doing the Rockville site. 399 got the word used written out beside it. That's a grant funded thing that we have going on this budget that will end at the end of this budget year. So there's no money in that. 412 is diesel fuel. We just did a budget amendment to increase the line item. This budget is increased as well from $180,000 to $235,000. Line item 450 is for tubes and tires. That's increased by $5,000 as well. We just did a budget amendment for that. 467, you can see a reduction in the fencing. We'll have to bid for the fencing at Rockville, so we'll wait and bid it and see what that's actually going to cost. The other money's in there is to help take care of the Leanna project. And then the other 2 line items, 499 is listed twice. One says used, one says mesh. Those are both grant related that should be gone away by the end of this budget. The big line item 718 is actually a decrease in the funds asked, but it's one front loader truck, and that's the one that we've talked about for several meetings, that when the new schools get built we're probably going to need. And then 377, other solid waste equipment's $188,000. That is put in there if we weren't going to buy the containers now. So that money can probably be reduced back to the original $40,000. Any questions on that budget?
So that budget is roughly within dollars of what it was last year, looks like.
That budget also, and I failed to mention this, and I apologize, is a 25-cent per hour increase for the part-time persons, which is our convenience center attendants. When I came here in 2008, Mayor Burgess and I started on a track to get our center attendants off of the minimum wage, which was at $7.75 at that time, 2 years, and our goal was to get them to $10. With this 25-cent per hour increase, we'll have them at $11.25. Our goal at that time was to catch up with Wilson County, and they've already ran off, left us, so we can't catch them.
Any questions for Mac on the convenience center budget? We need a motion.
Make a motion to forward it on the budget as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Please signify aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Continue on, Mac.
Okay, the next budget is other solid waste collections. This is actually our Haley Road operations. It's got one full-time employee and four part-time employees there, and that's the recycling effort and our Haley Road electronics collection. As you can see in line item 312 is an increase of $10,000, and that's because of the increased fees that we're spending on collecting the electronics and paying to get rid of those. That number may change, but it's the only budget thing we can do. The contract with that current company expires in August of this year, so we'll have to rebid that. And 399 other contracted services is a bit of an increase there, and it's to pay for the single stream recycling and the glass that we take to waste management. We've helped reduce some of that cost by landfilling some of those loads. The schools single stream recycling commodities have been recycled 5 times since fall break. The rest of the times it was way too contaminated, so it went to the landfill. Out of those 5 loads, we still had to pay for some contamination, but not as much. But if we had stayed on track to continue trying to recycle all that, we would have spent a whole lot of money for them to throw it away. And then 377 is $110,000. The rebate, recycle rebate that I mentioned is roughly $55,000. That's matching funds, so we would have to spend $110,000 to collect that 55. So that's what that line item's for.
What is that in parentheses? It says second year the city gave theirs. What is recycle rebate 50/50?
Yeah.
What is it?
Last year they didn't spend their money. We got it, and this year we got it as well.
Why is the city using theirs?
They were trying to spend it on their tub grinder and doing some stuff with it. And of course, they're considered more diversion than it is recycling. So they didn't want to spend that on recycling. What we used to spend it on here was salaries. We'd pay our salaries, or part of our salaries, for those people at Haley Road, and we can't do that anymore. When we had the GBB contract, we were using that, and you can't do that anymore either. So buying equipment and actually doing some other stuff. One year we bought a tow motor. Several years ago we bought that. We bought a used one, and it's done pretty well for us.
Okay. All right, any questions regarding the other waste collections budget? We will need a motion and a second.
Approve.
We have a motion to approve. And a second. All right, all those in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, back.
Our
Continue
next
on.
budget is our landfill operation and maintenance budget. As you know, we're not accepting any demolition debris. Only thing we're accepting is tires and brush. As of July 1, when this budget starts, then everybody will be paying for their tires and their brush. That should generate a little bit more income. But we still have that landfill to maintain. So the top section of it is the benefits, is just as the other budgets. 307 communication line item is telephone. OIT worked with us and got us on an internet-based telephone service that would help with the credit card situation and has reduced our phone bills. So I want to get with OIT and see if we can make a reduction at our convenience centers in a similar manner. I'm not sure that can happen. So you'll see a reduction in that line item. 351 is rentals. We reduced that by $1,000. That's most of what we spend out of there is Crystal Springs and porta potties. 359 is disposal fees. You can see an increase there from $260,000 to $300,000. That's where we pay Liberty Tire to recycle those tires. We had almost 4,500 tons of tires this past year, and at $65 a ton, that's about where it's running. We have a little reduction in 411, which is data processing supplies, that's scale tickets. Since we don't have as much debris coming in, we don't print as many tickets. And the other line items are pretty much the same as they've been in the past. Any questions?
One that, may I, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
The $300,000 in outside contractor stayed stagnant from year to year.
Yes.
3112. With less activity, that still continues to stay at that rate.
We're still doing quite a bit of things out there for adjustments and moving around. At some point, we're going to have to close that landfill, and it's going to be very expensive when we do it. But some of the maintenance, as the landfill settles with age, the drainage ditches move. So you have to go through there and correct some of that kind of stuff. And then our what we would call the active operating landfill, we've still got to move some dirt, and we actually have to move some trash around to try to get the contours finalized. But I'm just waiting to see what we're going to do before we spend all that money.
Any other questions? All right, you guys know the drill.
Motion to approve.
And we need a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Mac, what else you got?
The last budget is post-closure. That's on the old closed landfill. 359 is disposal fees, reducing that from $2,000 down to $1,000. That's where if we send our leachate over to Middle Point, they actually treat it and run it through their system. We don't send very much over there. It's less than 1,000 gallons a month, and they've not been charging us. So reduce that to half just in case they do charge for it. 366 contract with post-closure care is a reduction in that. That's where we've been paying on-site environmental to haul and treat our leachate. With some of that money you were asking Commissioner Dodd about spending, we put a lot of dirt on top of that old landfill, and it's helped solve some of the problem. We still have it, but it's a whole lot less than it was.
This year, I think.
Line item 420 for fertilizers and limes and chemicals and things, looking at reducing that. This spring, we're planning on spending money out of both the closed landfill budget and the active landfill budget to do some fertilizing and seeding. And once we get that done, we should be able to reduce that line item for this coming budget. And then the other line items are roughly the same. The 463 testing, that $45,000, we're under a state mandate that we have to have our landfill monitored professionally 4 times a year to where they come out and do all the testing, and that's what it costs to have that done 4 times a year.
All right, and that budget's down a couple of $100,000 compared to what it was last year. All right. Any questions on post-closure? The gift keeps on giving. Motion?
Motion to make it pass on to the Budget Committee as presented.
And a second? Commissioner Sereno. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, Mac, what else you got?
While the mayor's not here,
Yes.
we had the GBB contract, and I think they did what we allowed them to do. There was a lot of things that we didn't let them do, and they never actually finished what they were, the original task. But we did spend that money, and we budgeted to do some more. We did a little bit, and we have stopped.
Right.
County Commission, when GBB presented, voted 21-0 to not accept the SWAC committee's recommendations that came out of GBB. I don't think we need to have another SWAC committee. I think the 7 of you guys need to be the SWAC committee for this county. You know, if we need to get a consultant to help us with something, then that's your decision. The general public would like to have it, and they're a little bit upset because we've not shared anything with them, and we've not had any open meetings for them to, you know, to have comments. We've not made a decision for them to comment upon.
Right.
So we've got to make some decisions before they have, you know, there's nothing for them to tell us other than their personal opinion. So we need to move forward. And that's what the mayor is trying to do, and that's what we're trying to do. Darren Gore with the city is trying to do that as well. There's a lot of things out there that we still need to go look and talk about and smell and feel and touch, but we need to figure out what's going to be best for us. The other thing that we need to look at, in my personal opinion, is public-private partnerships. You know, we need to do some recycling. I think we need to do recycling with a recycling company. We need to do some trash things. I think we need to do trash things with a trash company. We need to do some composting things. We need to do that with composting companies. I can see us working with probably 8 different types of things to get rid of our stuff. But we got to take that first step and do one, and one of which is going to be a transfer station. Because if and when Middle Point closes, gets no more expansions, then we're going to be trucking trash out of this county. I think that needs to be our first task. Any questions?
I think we'll need to meet more than once a month to ever accomplish anything.
We probably need to meet once a week.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Joey would be part of that group with Darren, don't you imagine?
Yes, Darren is Joey's new boss, yes.
Yeah. Why don't we'll chat and probably ask you to put a list together who you think needs to be on this group.
I think the meetings need to be televised, just like they are now.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of county commissioners don't attend these meetings. I assume and hope that they're watching them from home, or at least watching them on review or whatever you call that, replay. Right. But this is going to be one of our biggest topics that we're going to face. In that meeting that we had with the top 5, Nashville is getting ready to take over Memphis. So Nashville is getting ready to be number 1. We're getting ready to take over Chattanooga, which is going to put us number 4. So you've got the top 1 and the top 4 counties as neighbors. We're going to have to look at working with our neighbors.
Okay. We'll chat and put a group together, put a list together, and we'll figure out, reach out into the community and see how we decide on what community players can make this committee, can be on this committee.
Right. Another thing that we're going to have to look at, and may have to start at the state level, may be able to start here locally, is the reason they can do the things they're doing in California is because they're mandated. Yeah. They have to do those. They don't have a choice. Our residents still have a choice. They can throw it in a ditch or throw it on the side of the road or take it to the landfill, or, you know, they have a lot of different choices. There's no teeth in doing it wrong here. There is there. So we're going to have to look into some of those mandated type things with some penalties that go along with them.
Does the state, will the state drive that down, or can the county come up with their own?
I'm not sure. I don't think TDEC is going to have the
will?
No, they're not going to have that will. And I'm not sure that we can do it locally. I don't think one county can. I don't know that.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything else?
Thank you, Mac.
Thank y'all.
All right. I think that brings us to any other business. Does anybody have any thing they'd like to share? Mr. Mayor, do you have anything else you'd like to add? All right. Meeting adjourned.